Hello and welcome to Giant Mess, a super sloppy sports and entertainment podcast that's hosted by a giant mess. That's me, the real cinch, Neal Lynch. I'm a single dad who loves to talk Giants football, Mets baseball, movies, and TV. On today's episode, we'll be talking about the Giants' devastating, monumental collapse against the Denver Broncos, giving up 33 points in the fourth quarter alone, one of the top 10 biggest blown leads in franchise history, going down and losing in Denver 33-32. We'll recap that, break it down, pull it apart, put it back together, pull it apart, blow it up, piss on it. And then we'll preview the upcoming Week 8 game against the Eagles in Philadelphia. Without further ado, let us get it started up in here. All right. Well, when we did our preview last week, it was hot off the presses from the upset of the Eagles in Week 6. We got a 17-point lead against the Eagles, and we kept that lead because the defense came up big and continued to play aggressive, played smart, and got some turnovers. You had Cordell Flott with what could have been a pick six. You had Dane Belton with the punch out to turn the ball over to basically seal the victory. You just didn't get that in this game against the Broncos for a few reasons. One, the offense couldn't put the final nail in the coffin like they did against the Eagles. There was that drive with about 6 minutes left on the clock against Philly where we just leaned heavily on Cam Scatterbo, and our offensive line came up big and we were able to get first downs, run out the clock, and take a knee for the victory. We weren't able to do that against the Broncos because the Broncos defense is significantly better than the Eagles defense. All around a better defense. And so you can't really get away with just running it on first down, running it on second down, and then basically being forced to pass on third down. And that's where the Broncos can excel, especially when it's third and long. So didn't really appreciate the game plan offensively in that fourth quarter. I think we got lucky on that last drive where we scored the go-ahead touchdown. We had a 4th and 19. Jackson does another great job of being mobile, maneuvering around in the pocket, keeping his eyes downfield, keeping his head up, and finding Wan'Dale Robinson on an absolute laser beam. And if they had measured, I think he would have come up short, but it was a lot closer than a lot of people thought. And we get the bullshit roughing the passer call. I mean, I guess under the strictest interpretation of the rules, yeah, I guess it's roughing the passer, but it was like not 2 full steps. It was like a step and a half. And I think the Broncos defender did enough to maintain the safety or preserve the safety of the quarterback on that, And so I don't think that should have been called, and the game probably would have been over then. And then you had that questionable DPI down the right sideline that set us up with 1st and goal where, Dart takes it in for the go-ahead score. Sean Payton gets the unsportsmanlike conduct, which is justified. I mean, did Bo Collins really make that much of an effort to come back for the ball? I don't think so. But did the defender impede his progress back to the ball? Sort of. He wasn't looking back at the ball. He was facing the receiver. So, I think that's a justified call. It's just questionable, If they hadn't called it, I don't know that Giants fans would be that up in arms, but considering we just got a favor in terms of the roughing the passer. So, offense, still, it's not like we didn't score any points in the fourth quarter. We still put up, 13 points, 13 points in a quarter. That usually is good, especially when you have 19 points. And to come out with a loss after that kind of production and performance from your offense, they had their faults. They made some errors here and there. The Dart interception was, for the most part, the beginning of the end. If you don't throw that pick in your own territory, you punt the ball away, or if you just make a better throw. I mean, it's not like he made the wrong decision on that. he had Theo Johnson open. It's just there's a guy in front of him. So you got to guy's open. You just got to figure out a way to get it over that defender and into Theo's hands. And Theo, being a big body that he is, tall as hail, you should be able to loft it and get it in there for a first down to extend the drive. And I think that would have really ended the game if we went on a drive there. So it's hard to fault an offense that puts up 32 points. Can you fault the kicker? 1,000%. Can you fault the defensive coordinator and the defense? Yes. Can you fault the head coach and the front office and the GM who have just like actively refused to address the kicker situation and have bungled that to a point where I mean, across the board, you ask anyone in the league and it's like, we've never seen anything like this. Like Giants fans have never seen anything like it, but I'm pretty sure if you went around to all the olds or the grizzled vets around the league and said, hey, have you ever seen a regime fuck up a kicker situation like this to this extent? They'd say no. So again, I guess it's not that big a part of your thought process when you become a first-time GM or first-time head coach. Like, kickers like very low on the list. It shouldn't be, because you can see how vital it can be towards the end of a game where you need a long field goal, or you don't opt for a long field goal because your kicker can't kick a field goal over 40 or 50 yards, when a lot of kickers in the league can kick over 60 yarders now. But, I think the offense did their part, but it was the interception that really breathed new life into the Broncos' comeback effort, unfortunately. I thought, other than that, Jackson Dart played a fairly well game. He did have a couple misses. He had the deep miss to Jalen Hyatt that would have put us in should have put us in field goal range if we have a normal kicker, an NFL kicker on the roster. And he did miss, I believe, that one, corner route by Theo Johnson towards the goal line, where it's like if he puts that on him, that's a touchdown, and maybe that puts the game out of hand. I don't know. But it comes down to the kicker, and it comes down to the defensive game plan towards the, in the fourth quarter, and how things dramatically shifted once Paulson Adebo left the game with an injury and you had to bring in Deonte Banks. So those are really your top three offenders here. If you were into playing the blame game, which as fans we can. Kicker, numero uno. Defensive coordinator, numero dos. And then Deonte Banks, number three. Those are the three guys where I think people universally are like, yeah, we can probably move on from those three and we'll be okay. We'll probably be better with the alternative. I have to agree. I mean, I guess this administration and this organization doesn't want to make a lot of like crazy knee-jerk reaction changes in season. That's trying to save his job, for a GM that's trying to prove his worth. I think Daboll has more to prove than Schoen, but I still think they're kind of in the same boat here. The GM is responsible for going out there and having his staff comb the desert for a kicker that is better than what we have on the roster. Both better than Graham Gano and better than Jude McAtamney. And what's crazy is if you're Younghoe Koo, this is a really bad look for you, my friend. Really bad look. The fact that you were signed because Graham Gano got hurt and Jude McAtamney is just on the roster because of some weird international rule thing that the league is trying to do. Okay. You came in, there was a competition, and you lost to that guy. Not a great look for Koo. So either Koo won the competition, but there's some kind of behind-the-scenes inner workings of the machinations of a fucking weird regime organization that is more focused on optics and narratives than they are wins, who said, oh, no, this is, there's probably some PR dickhead that is just like, oh, this will be great for Ireland, and like, whoa, we get to show the world that this is an international sport, and we get to say, like, they went with that as opposed to a guy that can win you games. Koo had a rough stretch in Atlanta. He's also kicked in the league for a very long time and has had a lot of really great game-winning field goals. I know the Falcons fans are like, get him out of town. Change your scenery could do you good. Gunnar Olszewski was run out of town by the Steelers. He was an all-pro with New England. He goes to Pittsburgh. He's run out of town. We take him, and he's done wonders for our return game, both on kickoffs and punt returns. Who's to say that the same couldn't happen for Koo? I don't know. He is a dome kicker. Having been in Atlanta, he's a dome kicker and wasn't great in the dome towards the end there. So he probably won't be that much better in the strong winds of the Meadowlands, which I don't think are as strong as they used to be in the old Giant Stadium. He's got to be better than Jude McAtamney, no? I mean, you would probably have more confidence in him trying to kick a 40 to 50 yarder than, Jude hasn't even attempted a 40 to 50 yarder. We just end up punting. I don't understand how anyone cannot find fault with Brian Daboll for this loss. I don't understand it because you're the head coach. You're seeing what's going on. You're telling me that you watched Jude McAtamney win that competition and said, yep, this is our guy. Then you saw him miss an extra point. Was it last week? He then misses 2 extra points this week. These are extra points. Like, I understand they're not like the old extra point from a longer distance, 30 plus yards. Those are like pretty much automatic. And fine, you missed 2 extra points over the course of a season, 17 games. You might let that slide. You missed 2 extra points. You missed 3 extra points in 2 games. Peace out. What? It's one of the most confusing eras in Giants football. And it's all because of the previous, before Brian Daboll's tenure, it was, we were too quick, we're too reactionary, and like one bad game and that's that. And so like we've now taken this way too lenient stance with some players like Graham Gano or Jude McAtamney or Deonte Banks. And yet we saw in his very first season, Daboll completely not play Kenny Golladay. Just not play him. Was the top paid wide receiver on the Giants, one of the top paid receivers in the league. We were in year 2 of his fucking free agent contract where he's making a lot of money and he just didn't play him. But yet, what happened? So we went from that to now we're going to bring back Graham Gano, even though he's missed half or more of the games the past 2 seasons and has cost us wins. We're then going to keep Jude McAtamney. Like, what did Jude show you in preseason that made you think, he obviously didn't do well enough to beat out Graham Gano. If he did, he would have taken the job. And I guess they would have cut Gano. He didn't. But yet you kept him. Gano gets hurt. And now you're stuck with Jude McAtamney. You bring in Koo. They had some kind of competition that no one saw or witnessed or knows about. But apparently Koo lost. So, if you're Koo, whoa, dude. It's like, get your act together. You just lost to a guy who shouldn't be an NFL kicker. He shouldn't be a kicker in the NFL. We'll get into some of the stats with Jude McAtamney that will blow your goddamn mind out of your skull. But in the preview, we said this is a winnable game. We took a look at, I was recording the recap of the Eagles game while watching. I had the Jets Broncos on in the background Sunday morning. It was an ugly game, that Jets Broncos game. Broncos win 13-11. Jets couldn't do anything offensively. Broncos defense looks solid. But the Broncos offense didn't really take advantage of a Jets defense that hasn't been that top notch. It's not as advertised. They've been billed as like, oh, it's a resurgent Jets defense with Quinnen Williams and Sauce Gardner and blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, but, that Jets defense is still getting gashed. And the Broncos offense couldn't do much of anything. So it was like, I think our defense, if we can continue along the lines of what we did against the Eagles, we should be able to hang tight in this game and make it competitive and bring it down to the wire. Did I foresee us getting out to legitimately a 3-4 score lead into the 4th and lose the game? No. But as I told my friends, as I've told family who have all been checking in, thank you for the wellness checks. Okay. Thank you for checking to see if I'm still alive. Trust me. Hanging on by a thread here. 19-0, I had no confidence in this team to win the game. 26-8, no confidence in this team to win this game. Because I saw what you did against New Orleans, and I don't trust Shane Bowen. I saw what happened with this defense against the Cowboys. We saw the defense let us down in the Commanders game. I know they only scored 22 points, but they let us down in that Commanders game. And most of the blame goes on the offense there. Most of the blame goes on the offense in the Chiefs game. But when you needed the defense to step up the most, they have failed you. The only game where the defense has stepped up, which we thought would be a turning point for the season, was the big upset blowout win over the Eagles, where the defense locked down in the fourth quarter. Cordell Flott gets the interception. Dane Belton gets the punch out. It wasn't until Dane Belton got that punch out on A.J. Dillon in the fourth quarter that I could actually relax and be like, okay, I think we have this game now. That's how little faith. I have zero faith in Shane Bowen. And so do his players. But we said this is a winnable game, and we should have won. Another game we should have won. So in a season where it's like, we very easily come into the season, it's the toughest schedule in the league, and it's hard to point out wins. There aren't any clear wins on the schedule. You're looking at one, maybe two that are like, okay, you can write those in ink. Coming into that season, and to be where we are now, to have the infusion of energy and excitement that Scadaboo and Dart have provided because of injury or ineptitude, Russell Wilson just stinking out loud, and Tyrone Tracy hurting his shoulder. It's like they are propelling us into this. They are propelling us into this new age of Giants football. We're still 2-5. And it makes you wonder, why did we sign Russell Wilson? After hearing what Sean Payton had to say, where he calls John Mara and says, we wish we would have liked if you kept with Russell Wilson and didn't make the change at quarterback until after we played you. Because that's how low Sean Payton thinks of Russell Wilson. That's how low. And yet, Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen saw what Russell Wilson did in Denver, saw what he did in Pittsburgh last season, and we're like, yeah, let's sign him. Yeah, he's your starter. That decision alone possibly cost you 2 wins. Who's to say if Jackson Dart doesn't start against the Commanders that he at least puts up a better, stronger effort, at least in the red zone, where we struggled heavily against Washington, and we struggled heavily in the red zone against the Chiefs in week 3. If you have Jackson Dart starting those games, is the outcome different? Potentially. So that's potentially 2 wins you lost there. There's no reason why you should have lost to the Saints. Your defense let you down against the Cowboys. It's just, these are all winnable games. But it's coming down to coaching. It's coming down to the coaching staff not being able to figure it out. Sean Payton is a good coach. Went to the Super Bowl and won. Has taken his team to the playoffs so many times. He's a good coach. He knew that Russ Wilson sucked out loud. He went to the GM and said, listen, I know this is not a great look. I know this is going to be awful financially. Economically, it could ruin you. But you need to get rid of Russell Wilson. That's a good coach. He understood that Russell Wilson doesn't have it anymore as a starter. Might be a great backup, but as a starter, he doesn't have it anymore, and we need to move on. And he drafts Bo Nix. He's also assembled a stellar defense. So I just don't. Why would you have any trust or confidence in this regime? And what sucks is we know we have the potential and the capability to win games. We know we have it within us. We just can't secure it. And that, I believe, is a coaching error. That's where the coaches need to step up and be smart and know what to do in critical situations. I look at the last stretch of 4 games after our bye week, and those are all very winnable games. And you catch 1 or 2 of these other teams on a down week, the Eagles are beatable. The Bears are beatable. The Niners are banged up, but you want to talk about great coaches, good coaches. The Niners have good coaches. They are without their starting quarterback. They were out without their starting tight end. They were out without their starting wide receiver. They were without a bunch of weapons on offense, still winning games. They just lost Fred Warner last week. They come out and they beat the Falcons without Fred Warner. A lot of injuries on defense, a lot of injuries on offense. They're 5-2. Those are good coaches. That is a good organization. We are not a good organization. We have good players for the most part, and a lot of key positions now don't have good coaches. All right, so let's get into it. I mean, Jackson Dart has firmly entrenched and solidified himself as our franchise quarterback. It was that quick. You know, I know I said it after the Eagles game that I have no doubt, but this further just solidifies it. To be able to go into Denver, hostile environment, the climate, you know, elevation, not flustering him, going up against what could be or is the top defense in the AFC, if not the league, and being able to put up that kind of performance, those kind of numbers. Like I said, he had some mistakes, but yeah, he's our guy. He's not going to be able to save Brian Daboll's job because Brian Daboll and Shane Bowen don't know how to coach. That's why he's not going to save, because there's only so much one player can do to win you games. It's like, as much as we like to say that Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen, they put on their cape, they go out there and win the game by themselves, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow. You look at Joe Burrow. We're in a Bengals type situation here where you look at last year, Bengals are just putting up 30 plus points, 30 plus points, 30 plus points, but their defense is atrocious and can't hold on to leads and can't stop the other team. Now, where does that fall? Does that fall on the defensive coordinator or does that fall on the head coach? The defensive coordinator was thrown under the bus. The head coach survived. You look at Burrow goes down this year. Browning comes in. They're not putting up 30 plus points because Browning, I guess, is just not throwing to Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. They trade for Joe Flacco, which I can't believe the Browns did that in division. Such a Browns move. Flacco comes in, beats the Steelers because he's just throwing and chucking perfectly thrown spirals to Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. So they were able to win that by 2, but again, they gave up 31 points. So, you know, what is my point? My point is the Bills could be frauds. The Chiefs, now that they have Rashee Rice back and the receivers back, and Mahomes has moderate to good weapons in terms of Xavier Worthy, who's a speed demon, Rashee Rice, who's a speed demon, and Andy Reid, who has been there, done that, and is one of the most winningest coaches in NFL history. You put Joe Burrow on the Chiefs, it's like you're probably winning a lot of games. You put Josh Allen on the Chiefs, you're winning Super Bowls. You know, I don't know that McDermott is necessarily the best head coach. And if it's like, are the Bills running out of patience with McDermott? You know, a lot of people want to criticize Mike Tomlin. But Jesus Christ, Mike Tomlin made the playoffs with Russell Wilson and Justin Fields last year. Look at what the fuck Justin Fields is doing for the Jets this season. So good coaches like a Shanahan in San Francisco are able to get the most out of their players. And if not getting the most out of the players, they're able to scheme and devise a plan that at least minimizes the damage and covers or hides or disguises the weaknesses, emphasizes the strengths. Like, it's so blatantly evident that we do not have the right coaches here. I mean, I feel like I say the same thing every single week. We all thought this defense was going to be ferocious. And we know that there were some issues in the secondary. We know we're not that strong at middle linebacker, but the defensive front, the defensive line, should be one of the top 5 in the league. And I would say that they are from a pass rush standpoint, you'd think. What the hell are Daboll and Bowen thinking in that fourth quarter? What the hell are you thinking? What are you doing? And it comes back to Paulson Adebo getting hurt. Once he gets hurt and Deonte Banks goes in, coincidence or not, all of a sudden the Broncos offense lights up our secondary and is putting up points. 3 quarters, no points, basically shut down, to Adebo gets hurt, Banks comes in, and they go on a scoring tear. So I love the touchdown pass from Dart to Bellinger. It was 44 yards. How calm, cool, and collected did Jackson Dart look on that play? He's getting pressure, and he's not panicking. It was like the smoothest, calmest, just shift in the pocket. He's right. He has a rusher coming at him. He just slowly steps to the left, steps up. Bellinger's wide open. And I'm telling you, A lot of quarterbacks, even professional quarterbacks, in that situation when you have a guy that wide open, you can get excited and you can overthrow the ball because you're so pumped that a guy's wide open. It's an automatic score. You have 6. As soon as you see him open, you're like, this is 6. How many quarterbacks would overthrow that, airmail it, or make an errant throw? And Jackson Dart put it right on the money for the touchdown. Daniel Bellinger is now performing at the similar level that he was, if not better than the level he was playing at in 2022 when we said, oh, we got our guy at tight end. And now he's showing up on offense more and more each week, with some people saying that he should be tight end 1. And it's hard to disagree with that because the guy catches everything. Just about everything he catches. I have more confidence in him to catch a ball than I do Theo Johnson. So it's so nice seeing that out of a quarterback, that it's just the pressure just does not get to him in that scenario. You did see flashes of what people didn't like about Jackson Dart around draft time in the fourth quarter, though, where it's like you're down, it's pressure cooker time, 2-minute situation, you're behind, you need to go and win the game. Is he forcing throws? Sort of. People keep bringing up that game, Ole Miss game he had against Florida, where he throws the 3 picks at the end of the game, where it's winnable. You just got to put together a drive, and maybe he panicked or tried to force some things and would throw picks towards the end of the game. And this wasn't identical to that situation, but it kind of made you think about it, like, whoa, okay, does he have it? And like I said, benefited from a questionable DPI, benefited from bogus roughing the passer. But even given that situation, misses a deep shot here and there. So, it's not flawless, but still he kept you in the game and should have won the game, on a very tough run at the goal line where it's like designed run. I think they pull the guard. He slips inside the guard that's pulling the kick out and is able to extend the ball and get in the end zone. And there's 30 seconds left, 20 seconds left. You should win the game. You should win the game there. And you didn't, because our defensive coordinator just does not get it, man. Cam Scattaboo, we go up 13-0 on the Cam Scattaboo receiving touchdown. I think this is his first receiving touchdown of the season. What I liked about this play was his patience and his vision. I think people like to label him as he's just this dumb jock who's just going to, battering ram, no brains, all brawn, just, going to run through a brick wall, and that's that. And it's he's so much more than that. His blocking ability and this touchdown catch should have opened some eyes. It's not getting a lot of play time because they didn't win, and it was a historic collapse. But he takes that pass. He gets behind his linemen who are out in front blocking. He moves in and out. It's yes, majority of the time he's looking to lower his shoulder, lower his head, and get those tough yards and make contact. This one, he actually was maneuvering and manipulating the defenders that are behind the blockers and was able to find some open space. And then, yes, of course, he finishes the run by lowering his head 3 yards deep in the end zone to lay a lick on a would-be tackler. That's you didn't need to do that. But I've been there where it's sometimes you just want to punish people. It reminds me, no one wants to hear this, but it reminds me of when we were playing, I believe we were playing Hamilton West. It was a Friday afternoon game, which was weird for varsity football. We were playing in Hamilton, and they were depleted. I think their starting quarterback had the flu, the injuries and sickness and illness, and we went in there, and I got a jammed finger very early on in the game, and so my throwing was just off the whole game. No excuses, play like a champion. But ended up running the ball a lot, with the triple option, which I know people who know me know I can't run. So very interesting call. But what I did then, which I wouldn't be able to get away with in college, and I wasn't able to get away with in college, was I would just, when I keep the ball, I would just try and run people over because it's high school. And I was one of the bigger players just because it's a high school and it's not like Texas or Florida or California high school football. It's New Jersey Mercer County high school football. So, there was a belly option to the left. I keep the ball. There's a guy who's like, I don't know how many yards deep in the end zone, but he comes and approaches me. I'm 3 yards deep in the end zone, and I truck him, run him over because I can, and I will. And I wanted to show some dominance there. So I'm not opposed to that, and I love it. But it's what he did before that I'm more in love with. The fact that he was able to take it, and he's not just blowing past his offensive lineman. He has football intelligence, I guess is what I'm trying to say here. There's a football IQ there. He's not just this dumb head full, he's got a head full of rocks. Like, the guy can think and is smart when it comes to football. So I was really impressed with Cam on that play. And that's where we have the first missed extra point. Oh, God. Tyrone Tracy then makes it 19-0 in the third quarter with a 31-yard rush, untouched. One of the biggest holes I've ever seen a Giants offensive line create, and just no one near him for yards and yards and yards. So that was an easy touchdown. And then we go for 2 there. And we did not convert on that 2-point conversion. I didn't like the call on that 2-point conversion. We have been pretty shitty when it comes to 2-point conversions, which is weird because I feel like with Dart in the game, we have been better in the red zone. Like, our red zone percentage has climbed from 20 some odd, 30 some odd percent to now it's in the low 40%. So he's giving us a boost on third downs. He's giving us a boost in the red zone on fourth downs. We just still can't figure out 2-point conversions, which sucks. And the reason we went for 2-point conversion is because my guess is Daboll didn't have confidence in his kicker. Again, why is he on the roster? I don't know. And then we go on this start the fourth where Troy Franklin gets a 2-yard pass from Bo Nix, and then they convert with the two-point conversion, making it 19-8. And once I saw that Theo Johnson pulled in the touchdown off of Wan'Dale Robinson deflection, I was like, okay, maybe this is our day. Maybe this is our year. Maybe this is our week. This is where things are turning around. It's like, it's just that doesn't usually happen for us. Like, it was very shades of Super Bowl 21, where it's, goes off Bavaro, and then McConkey catches it in the end zone for a touchdown. It's like now reversed. The receiver goes off the receiver, the tight end catches it and rumbles for the touchdown. And we're up 26-8 with 10 minutes left. And I was like, I felt better about our chances. Did I think, we got this in the bag? Not a chance. Not a chance. And sure enough, Broncos drive down, and Bo Nix keeps it, scores on a keeper, and then they convert on the 2-point conversion. So now it's 10 points down. And this is where I was like starting to sweat. I'm like, okay, this isn't great. And I believe this is where Dart throws the interception in our own territory. Denver scores to make it a 3-point game. They then get the ball back, go down, and I was like, all right, well, at least I was like, okay, so they'll go down, they'll kick the field goal, tie it up, and we'll go into overtime and we'll probably lose. And then we just allowed them to score a touchdown. Bo Nix on an 18-yard keeper. Will Lutz with the extra point to make it 30-26 when it should be 30-28. 30-28, it's like, all right, the offense, I know there's like less than 2 minutes left, but we just got to get in field goal range. And yeah, our field goal kicker sucks, but what other option do we have? We're not going to go down and score a touchdown. And of course we did. We got a lot of help from the referees on that one. But 37 seconds left. We're up by 2. We should be up by 3 because McAtamney misses the extra point again. So we're up by 2. And as soon as he missed that extra point, I said, oh, we're going to lose. How many times, how many fans, how many teams can you say that with? That you're up by 2 with 37 seconds left in the game, and you think, oh, we're going to lose. With the Giants, it's 100%. I knew that we were going to lose the game once he missed the extra point. I was like, well, it was just prolonging the inevitable. It was like, even if he makes that extra point, Denver's going to go down and kick a field goal in Denver, a place that the ball carries an extra 5-10 yards. So it's like they just have to get to the 50? And considering that like our kickoff game has been suspect, not great, it's like they'll probably return it to the 30, 35, and they need 15 to 20 yards against a defense that has shown that it cannot make the stop in a tight game at the end of the game, yeah. So I had very little confidence that we were going to pull this out. I was like surprised when we go down and score the touchdown. I was like, oh, that's unexpected. But it was never like I wasn't screaming or hollering and cheering because I was like 37 seconds. And sure enough, we rushed 3, drop 8. Dexter Lawrence not on the field. I don't think Abdul Carter was on the field. And Broncos go down. We have a timeout left. We don't call the timeout with Brian Burns trying to get back on side, so we get an offsides there. It's 1st and 5, and then the big completion to Sutton to effectively ice the game with Will Lutz kicking the 39-yarder as time expired. And they cut to Jackson Dart, and he looks like he's seen a ghost, and it's like, oh, Jackson, my friend. I know you haven't been here, and that's probably a good thing. No, that is a good thing. That's the best thing, that you haven't been here to witness all this fucking chicanery that we have put up with as fans for the past 10 plus years, because this is just commonplace for us as a franchise. So hopefully no one like gave you any kind of debriefing when you were drafted. They were just like, hey, listen, we're a football organization. It's a new day. It's a new dawn, new era with you as quarterback. We're not going to show you all these other painful lowlights that led up to your drafting. Just don't worry about that. Because if you knew about all that, you wouldn't have done what you did in the Denver game and drove us down and got the go-ahead touchdown. So, feel for Jackson Dart. I do not feel for Brian Daboll. You idiot. Same with you, Shane Bowen. I cannot believe these guys still have jobs. But, Mara has cancer. I think that has something to do with it. We already talked about how the organization doesn't want to make moves, in midseason. They want to wait till the end of the season. And, I get it because there's an outside chance that you're able to figure it out and be more consistent down the stretch. But my God, the moment we are eliminated from playoff contention, can we just wipe the slate clean? There's no reason in keeping them around for the end there. Just like, let's give some other guys some shot, I mean, you look at this box score, it's unlike anything I've ever seen before. I mean, 7-0 in the first. We score 6, they score none in the second. We score 6, they score none in the third. We scored 13 points, our most in any quarter of the game, and we lose by 1. 33 points in one quarter. Ooh, baby. In terms of expected points contributed, the offense did everything within their power. Probably one of the best offensive performances we've seen in the short season so far. The passing game was huge. Lots of big chunk gainers. Dart, again, just being able to buy some time and find the right guy, find the open guy, and not give up on a play. I think that happened way more. It happened a lot with Russell Wilson, and it happened way too often with Daniel Jones, which is weird because you watch Daniel Jones on the Colts now, and he doesn't do that. He's moving around, and he's finding the open guy. So sometimes it is just a change of scenery, I guess. Although I would have to say that talent-wise, the Colts are overall better than we are, but their coaches are significantly better than our coaches. The defense, our pass defense, ironically, wasn't too bad. It was our rush defense that really let us down. And I guess you could attribute that to not having a spy on Bo Nix, which is kind of weird. I think Bo Nix has shown in the 1+ seasons that he's been a starter in Denver that he has the ability to make plays with his legs. And it's just, I guess it's something that's just forgotten or lost in the mix when you are game planning for a team like an offense like Denver's. So it sucked to see that he's just running freely and there's no one on him. Is part of the reason why that didn't happen because Abdul Carter popped up on the injury report late in the week with a hamstring thing. And so he wasn't at 100%. He's usually kind of put in that spy position, that role as spy. And so do they not want him chasing Bo Nix with that bum hammy? You got me by the frickin' balls. But the special teams really cost us big time. So returns, I guess, weren't so great. But yeah, it's the kicker. We had 26 first downs. They had 25, 119 yards rushing for us and 2 touchdowns. They had 142 yards rushing. on 24 carries, so big yards per attempt there. Dart finishes 15 to 33, 283, 3 touchdowns and a pick. Bo Nix threw 50 frickin' times. Completed 27 passes for 279, 2 touchdowns. Dart was sacked 4 times for 15 yards. I know that sounds like a lot, but it didn't. I think there were a few times where he probably could have or should have gotten rid of the ball and ran into a couple. We only had 2 sacks, both from Brian Burns for 14 yards. Similar amount of net passing yards, pretty much similar amount of total yards. Denver did have the fumble, but didn't come back to haunt them. Dart has that one interception, which the Broncos got points off of. We had 8 penalties for 36 yards. Denver had 12 penalties for 127 yards, which is crazy. We were 6 of 15 on third down. They were 4 of 13. We're 2 of 2 on fourth. They're 1 of 2 on fourth, and time of possession was about even. But what the team stats don't show you is we should have seen the team stats through 3 quarters. Because, you look at the final score, you look at the team stats, you're going to be like, oh, pretty even game. Wow, what a crazy game. And it's like, no, it's even crazier than that because through 3 quarters, the Giants pretty much dominated and owned this game. The 44-yard touchdown that Jackson Dart threw to Daniel Bellinger was the longest of Bellinger's career and the longest touchdown catch by a Giants tight end since Evan Ingram, ironically, caught a 75-yard touchdown at Tampa Bay on September 22nd, 2019, Daniel Jones' first start. It's also the longest completion of Jackson Dart's young career and the tight end's first touchdown since October 16th, 2022. I think that was against the Ravens. Bellinger had 59 yards in the first quarter, surpassing his career high for an entire game, which was 52 at New Orleans in Week 5. He finished with 3 catches, 88 yards on the score. It marked the first time this entire season that the number 1 ranked Broncos defense allowed a first quarter touchdown. It's also just their 6th touchdown allowed all season in any quarter. Ha-cha-cha. So this doesn't feel like a flash in the pan for Jackson Dart. And the hope here is that this coaching staff fucking wakes up and realizes that Daniel Bellinger is an asset. And I brought this up before, but who's to say that eye injury really didn't put a major dent in Daniel Bellinger's career with the New York Giants? If he doesn't suffer that eye injury in 2022, do we see the fall off in 2023 and 2024, where he's just not even in consideration? For them to go out and trade for Darren Waller, it's a lot of what ifs. If he didn't have that eye injury, I think that he plays to a point where you're having the conversation that maybe he's worthy of a Pro Bowl nod in 2022. And then 2023, you go out and you get Darren Waller. Is it because of that injury? I think it is. I think there's something there that if someone better than me, that has a journalism degree, that can do some in-depth investigation, can really look into that, because that to me was when things turned for Daniel Bellinger, was that eye injury. And it took him a while to get back to where he was in 2022, 2 full seasons plus, where we turn to Darren Waller in 2023 to help us. Then 2024, you draft Theo Johnson and you make him the tight end 1. So it's like, I think, I like our tight end room right now. I like the 1-2 punch with Theo and Daniel. Bellinger's, I think, a better blocker than Theo, but I like what we have in terms of our tight end room. The pass that Dart had to Dart had another great pass to Bellinger earlier in the quarter for 15 yards, where Jonathan Cooper was offsides. There were a lot of offsides from the Broncos, like neutral zone offsides. I think they had like 3 or 4, which is crazy. But Dart being able to, again, buy time with his legs, move around the pocket and find Bellinger for 15 yards was a thing of beauty. That drive didn't result in anything. It was the first time we didn't score a touchdown in 3 games on our opening drive, but just goes to show you that, Dart's no fluke. He's not a flash in the pan. You just got to stay healthy. I feel like we get an injury scare every game. He had tried to make a move, scrambling right, and it's something with his heel. It's like, oh, is that an Achilles? I hope it isn't. So another play that, like on that play, opening drive, it's 3rd and 3. We're at our own 42. He completes it 15 yards to belly, and we're not able to get points. We're like in Denver territory, in the point where we should be able to kick a field goal, and we can't because we have Jude McAtamy. God damn it! And you punt, and what happens? It's a touchback. If you have a kicker there that's capable, you kick the field goal. You're up 3, and I don't know, 32 plus 3 is 35, and they have 33. I think we win the game. What do you think, math majors? Another play. I think this was on the drive where we did, in fact, score the touchdown. 2nd and 10 from our 23. Dart scrambles, moves around, finds Wan'Dale Robinson for 23 yards. Huge play. Second quarter, we're up 13. We're at the Denver 13. It's 3rd and 11. There's like little under 9 minutes left. And this is where Dart completes the pass to Scadaboo, who's wide open, expertly designed. And this is something that when I was watching a lot of the previews, with the Broncos having the most sacks in the NFL and getting a ton of pressure on opposing quarterbacks, this is where the screen game would be nice to have. We haven't seen much of the screen game through the first 6 weeks, and so a lot of people thought in their previews that this could be the week that we start to brush off our screen pass skill set. And sure enough, we did it here, and it results in a touchdown. I would love to see this more often because it feels simple. It feels simple. It doesn't feel too complicated, but it can go awry if you don't perform it to a T. So to see us to be able to execute that is a good sign. We're able to get to that point to get to that touchdown because Jackson Dart was able to convert on 4th and 1, at the Denver 13. That was huge. So that's another thing that kind of maybe, we talk about Scadaboo and Dart and like all the positives that we see there and their strengths and their highlights. And, Scadaboo, something that flies under the radars, his patience, his vision, his ability to play smart. And then Dart, his ability on short yardage QB sneaks to find the weak spot or the soft spot in the defensive line and pick that up. It feels like he's been fairly successful in those 3rd and 1, 4th and 1 QB sneak situations because he's able to identify where he should go with the ball. Jackson Dart in the first half versus Denver had a 66.7% adjusted completion rate, 179 total yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks, on 113.7 passer rating, and the 13-0 lead. We've seen this in all of his starts. Hot starts. First half, not an issue for Jackson Dart. He is playing as good as you could want in the first half. Second half, Saints kind of unraveled. Had that crucial fumble, trying to force the ball down the field, force the ball on an in-cut. Receivers didn't help him out there, but you can start to see a little bit of that in the second half here against Denver, where, there was a couple throws where it's like, Jesus, Jackson, what were you seeing there that made you think that you had any kind of chance to complete that? There's like 3 Broncos around. They all had a shot at it, but they just collided with each other. So, that's something that he needs to work on. And he is a rookie, but, the pros outweigh the cons at this point. There are minimal cons. It's like protect your body, protect yourself, and protect the ball, right? Those are the 2 things that we need to work on with him. The Tyrone Tracy's 31-yard touchdown rush was the longest rushing attempt by the Giants this season, which is kind of nuts. And this is where Dan Schneier echoed the decision or questioned the decision to go for 2 here when you're up 19-0. Thinking about it now, why did the Giants go for 2 at 19-0? Wouldn't they be better getting to 20? So if Denver scores 2 touchdowns with a 2-point conversion on both, they can't tie the game with a field goal. They score a touchdown, they get 2, that's 8. Score a touchdown, they get 2, that's 8. They then kick a field goal, that's 3. 16 plus 3 is 19. No way to get to 20. It should be a 21-7 game, right? This was after the Broncos scored their touchdown. and extra, or would have been the extra point, because I doubt they would have gone for 2 there. The kicker must be replaced. Yeah, that's clear to everyone but the coaching staff and the front office. Jackson Dart, this was on third and 12, another third down, big time third down conversion. This is in the third quarter with a little over 9 minutes left in the third. Third and 12 at the Giants 38. We're up 13-0. He completes the short pass over the middle to Wandale for 13 yards, and we get that 15-yard face mask penalty tacked onto it, which was great. So now you're at the before that, with a little under 11 minutes left to play, another big third down conversion, 3rd and 4 at our own 21. Dart completes to Theo Johnson to the short right for 19 yards. So again, this is where Dart is making his money. Red zone, 3rd down, 4th down. So, and I don't know that I necessarily see that changing. Not getting the 2-point conversion up 19-0 ends up being the difference maker. I didn't like the call there. I think they put Bo Collins, if I'm remembering correctly, and they're in shotgun. I think Scat, or the running back, is to Dart's left or right, is next to the quarterback. Collins motions from left to right. He then circles back around, so that you're really drawing a lot of attention to Bo Collins, which it's like, okay. Did anyone think that we were going to go to Bo Collins on that fucking play? It's not like he's Tyreek Hill. So I was like, all right, well, we're not. I mean, this would be the perfect time to throw to Bo Collins because no one's expecting it. And instead, they do a little leak out with Wandale, and Wandale is not going to score there. If he runs to the goal line and runs along with the goal line, on the goal line, maybe, but he runs short of the goal line. And if he runs short of the goal line in a man coverage situation, unless he does a, I forget what the pattern's called, but where you run to the flat, stop, and come back in, that I would rather have seen that than what this like speed flat thing where he doesn't get enough depth. That's just you're giving up. That's not going to score. So I hate the play call there. I thought they would be a little more creative on the 2-point conversion. Similar thing could be said with the Jackson Dart touchdown to go ahead with 37 seconds left. Aaron Stinney comes in, reports as eligible. He then splits out as a slot. They start in a heavy formation with Stinney as kind of like the extra blocker. They then motion out their tight ends and Stinney. So they're all split, and it's like 4 wide, and I think Dart's the only one in the backfield, and it's like, oh, here comes a QB draw. Like the moment that they saw Stinney split out and all the tight ends split out, I was like, oh, QB draw. And sure enough, it was. And I don't know if that's the one they scored on, or I think that's the one they scored on, but it was just an incredible effort by Dart. That's not like a good play call. So yeah, we just got to get better in the when we're in close quarters like that, like within the 5, inside the 5. I feel like we still have not figured that out. Fast forward to the 4th quarter. You have that big touchdown to Theo Johnson where it goes off Wandale Robinson. What a rocket from Jackson Dart there on a 3rd and 17 from the Denver 41. We're up 20, and we were up 19-8 at that point. And that's where it felt like, okay, maybe I need to stop being such a Debbie Downer, stop being a negative Nancy, stop raining on everyone's parade, hop on the bandwagon, come on, plenty of room, cheer up, like maybe we do have this. And then, of course, the 2 big plays toward the end in our favor, the pass interference on 3rd and 10 from the Denver 40 when we're down by 4 with less than a minute to play. I don't know, man. I could see them not calling it. It could have gone either way. And then before that, the 4th and 19, it was reminiscent. I was like, as I saw 4th and 19, I was like, this reminds me, not exactly the same, but shades of 86 where Phil Simms, it's 4th and, I think it's 4th and 18 or 4th and 22. It's 4th and forever against the Vikings in Minnesota. And he makes that huge completion on the sideline to Bobby Johnson. And then that sets them up for the game-winning field goal from Raul Alegre. So I was like, 4th and 19. If it's Russell Wilson, we have no shot. If it's Daniel Jones, we probably don't have a shot. But what I think Jackson Dart might have something here. So it's like I definitely didn't feel like game's over at 4th and 19, which that's a huge compliment to Jackson Dart, considering how we have just ever since Eli have not. We thought Daniel could be that guy. Showed it in his very first start, but then rarely showed it after that. We kept thinking, oh, he's just going to do what he did in the Tampa game, and he never really came around on that. And I think you can even see that in Indianapolis now with Daniel. It's like the Colts are winning. They're not having like big come from behind wins. I guess you could say the Denver game is technically a come from behind win, but that's more of Denver losing it than Indianapolis winning it. Like missing the field goal and then jumping off, doing the whole leverage thing on the 60 some odd yard field goal that guy was not going to hit. So, but with Jackson, it's like 4th and 19. All right, let's see what you got. On our own 26, he did that. Rifled it to Wandale. And I don't know. Some people are saying, like, if they did the virtual, like, if they didn't have the roughing the passer call against John Franklin Myers, that they would have possibly done the virtual measurement and he might have got it. Because, like, the yellow line, as they say repeatedly during the broadcast, is not official. So, in terms of negative plays in that fourth quarter, 3rd and 8 from our 30. We're down 26-23. There's a little under 3 minutes left to go. It's 3rd and 8. And Dart misses on a deep right pass to Wandale Robinson. Again, I feel like I mentioned this after the Cowboys game, which then I mentioned in the Chiefs game. Wandale Robinson is not the guy to throw to deep outside the numbers, at least not on a straight vert or anything where, like, sure, he might be able to beat his guy, but like he's not coming down with the catch because there's just like no room for error. It's just not the guy you throw to outside the numbers deep. You just don't. Like in that Dallas game where we saw us throwing deep to him, which was a shock because we just historically have not thrown deep to him. If anything, it's been that kind of corner route. That's different in my eyes. It's like, okay, he starts on the slot, maybe he's motioning, he makes a move to the corner, and then you get a nice little 17, 20-yard chunk play towards the sideline, but where he's running, diagonally away from a guy. If he has to run vert straight up and down outside the numbers one-on-one with a guy, it's so rare that he's going to come down with that. The probability is so low. So I would have liked to see little Jordan Humphrey on that vert down the right side outside the numbers. That was crazy. I thought this would be like a little Jordan Humphrey revenge game. And, I haven't obviously reviewed the film or the tape, but just from, and I didn't have that cool all 22 look that you have from Prime Vision on Amazon with Next Gen Stats, but it did feel like Lil Jordan Humphrey is open. And when he's not open, as we saw against Philadelphia, you can still throw him the ball, and he's got the big body to box out and to make the contested catch. So I would have liked Jackson to go to Lil Jordan a little bit more often than he did, especially when it's crunch time and you're looking for a big gainer down the sideline. It's not going to be Wandale Robinson, dude. And then the other negative play, 3rd and 5. From our 35 with a little under 5 minutes left to play. This was the Dart interception. Justin Sternad at the Giants 40, returned 21 yards. So, if you watch that back, it's like he's just got to put a little bit of touch on it, and he has Theo open, and it would have been a first down, and then you can knock off another 35 seconds of game clock. And so now you're down to around 4 minutes, and hopefully you're smart about how you're calling plays, and you can continue to keep that clock running so that even if you do a 3 and out there at 30 seconds a pop, you're looking at 1.5 minutes to 2 minutes that you could potentially run off and get down to that 2-minute warning where you're up by 10. Again, Up by 10 with 2 minutes, odds are way high versus up by 10 with 5 minutes, and it's like, all right. So that 26 first downs that I mentioned from the Giants was a season high. We had the second most total yards of our season so far through 7 weeks, and the second most passing yards of the season. This season, only 3 tight ends have scored on pass plays of 40 or more yards, and the Giants own 2 of those 3. The other one is from Pittsburgh tight end Pat Freiermuth, who had a 68-yard tutty. Since at least 2000, no other team has had 2 different tight ends record touchdown catches of 40 or more yards in the same game. Holler at your boy. That's why I think, we got some. I know we don't have Malik Neighbors. I know we don't have Darius Slayton. And I know Wan'Dale Robinson is limited. Can't stress that enough. Limited in what he's able to get you and offer you. These tight ends are legit, man. I believe in Daniel Bellinger, and I'm starting to get a little more confidence in Theo Johnson. And we need to lean on them. And I think that's what Jackson Dart is doing. The Giants became the first team in the NFL this season to score 3 touchdowns of 30 or more yards in a single game. Do you want me to read that back? Because it's it sounds like fiction. It sounds like fantasy. The Giants became the first team in the NFL this season to score 3 touchdowns of 30 or more yards in a single game. You had Belly's 44-yarder, Theo's 41-yarder, and Tyrone Tracy's 31-yarder. So who would have thunk it would have been the friggin' Giants? And this goes back to what I've been saying. We didn't feel like the offense was going to be that great this season. We felt like it's still going to struggle in the red zone, still going to struggle on third down, not figure it out in terms of getting anyone other than Malik Neighbors involved in this game plan and Tyrone Tracy. And, can they get back to what success we had with the tight ends in 2022? And it's not the Lions. It's not the Chiefs. It's not the Rams. It's not some high-powered offense. It's the New York Giants. So, it's not all doom and gloom with the Giants after this game. Offensively, you're starting to feel much better about yourself. You just don't have the right head coach and the defensive coordinator. Sleeper Giants at Sleeper Giants on X said Jackson Dart is the first quarterback in NFL history with 790 or more passing yards, 165 or more rushing yards, 7 or more touchdown passes, and 3 or more rushing touchdowns through their first 4 starts. Now, I've thrown a lot of baseball stats out there that people have been like, Neal, come on, you're reaching, you're stretching, you're grasping at straws. We saw a lot of these weird stats with Daniel Jones, right? He would come up with a game where it was like, oh, that was a good game. And then you see a stat like this where it's like first quarterback ever to do X, Y, Z. And you're like, oh shit. Okay. Maybe we do have someone. Jackson Dart has been doing things like this every start where it's like, we just, I mentioned it, I think it was last week or the week before. Like he's doing things in his first starts that we have never seen from a rookie Giants quarterback. So, Blue Film Room at Big Blue Film Room on X said Jackson Dart completed 8 of 14 passes for 193 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception against the Broncos blitz. That's the third most passing yards by any player against the blitz this season. And that's what, there's no, everyone, yeah, we get it. He's the guy for the foreseeable future. Just got to keep him healthy. That's all you got to do. And hopefully you can get someone in place from a coaching standpoint that can help him develop beyond just the guts and the grit. This is from Monte Cristo on X. Jackson Dart's current 17-game touchdown pace is 42.5 total touchdowns. Holy shit, dude. If he actually does that, MVP. I don't care if we go 5-12 or 6-11. Like if he actually does that, how are you not the MVP? Dart is the first Giants rookie quarterback to throw 3 or more touchdowns and rush for 1 or more touchdowns since Charlie Connerly threw for 3 touchdowns and rushed for another on November 21st, 1948 at Green Bay. It's almost friggin' 80 years ago. Whew. Dart is the third rookie quarterback since 2000 to be responsible for 10 touchdowns in his first 4 career starts, joining Justin Herbert, who had 10, and Deshaun Watson, who had 13. What the fuck happened to Deshaun Watson? Well, a lot of stuff happened. There was a lot of friction. Maybe he got rubbed the wrong way. Doug Analytics at Doug_Analytics on X said expected points added per play the last 2 weeks. That's week 6 and 7. Mahomes is number 1 with a .51. Drake May is number 2 with a .46. Dak Prescott is a .44. Number 3. And number 4, Jackson Dart with a .41. So he's there, folks. It's like, okay, we missed on Drake May. Shit happens, but we got Jackson Dart. Benjamin Solak at Benjamin Solak said Jackson Dart's day against the Blitz, according to Next Gen Stats numbers, a 149.3 passer rating. Easily the best defense he's faced all year, and he's passed with flying colors, avoided negatives, got the ball out fast, and challenged tight coverage. Yeah. There were, like I said, there were a handful of throws he'd like to have back where he could have very easily been picked on the last couple of drives in that fourth quarter, forcing the ball into triple double coverage, and the pick, whatever. But versus the Blitz, the 149.3 passer rating versus not against the Blitz, 16.1 yards per attempt versus the Blitz. His CPOE is still in the negative though. So completion percentage over expected is still in the negative, which is interesting. His .37 expected points added per play for this game was in the 86th percentile. And he still has that negative 18.1% CPOE, but he had a 45% success rate. So pretty good there. He was 4 of 5 on passes that have taken 3 or more seconds since the snap, including the touchdown to Bellinger. 4 or 5 for 111 passing yards and a plus 1.93 expected points added per pass, with an average depth of target of 18.4 yards. So you give my boy 3 seconds, he gonna torch you down the field, which is awesome. I love that. And part of that's the offensive line improving week after week and becoming one of the better offensive lines in football. Andrew Thomas is playing at an all-pro level. Jermaine Illuminor is playing at a Pro Bowl level. Not willing to say all-pro just yet, but definitely a Pro Bowl level. Sucks that because he's on a losing team, he might not get that accolade, but he should because he is playing well. He did have another bad penalty today, but against the Broncos defense, only allowing 4 sacks for 15 yards, it's under 4 yards a sack. It's not causing a ton of damage there. A lot of times it's just the coverage was that good. It's a lot of coverage sacks. But I think Nick Bonito was held in check, which is good to see. Jackson Dart, since taking over as quarterback from weeks 4 through 7. So we now have 4 games to sample from. He's 13th in expected points added per play, 14th in success rate, 5th in expected points added per play in the first half, 3rd in success rate in the first half, 3rd in expected points added per play on 3rd down, 5th in success rate on 3rd down, and 10 total touchdowns, 7 passing, 3 rushing. So a lot of success in the first half. Would like to see him finish it out and give me a full 60 where he steps up in the second half. I think both this game and the Saints game, it's like the second half was dicey, not looking like he was in the first half. And then, again, that 3rd down success is so huge and so nice to see, so refreshing for once. I thought Tyron Tracy had a nice little bounce back game. 31 of his 46 total rushing yards came on the 1 carry. Other than that, he had like 8 carries for 15 yards. But Scat had 94 scrimmage yards, right? 16 carries, 60 yards, had a long of 18, 6 targets, 3 catches, 34 yards, and a touchdown, with a 13, being the longest catch there. So, pretty decent game. I mean, 19 touches, 94 total yards. I'll take that. Wandale had 12 frickin' targets, 6 catches, 95 yards. And again, Lil Jordan Humphrey, only 2 targets. That stinks. I would like to see him, like, he should have as many targets as Theo and Daniel. I feel like there were a few situations where Dart and Daniel Jones did this as well, where they like their last resort or like their go-to guy is Wandale, and it's just not. I wish they would learn from that, because it's he's not that Steve Smith type of guy where it's like on third down you're looking to him and going to him. Eli did the same thing. He had his guys on third down that he would like default to, and it's like, well, just maybe give Lil Jordan a little look-see. I think Lil Jordan will have a bounce back game against the Eagles in Week 8 for sure in Philly. The Phillies should be able to take a look at the game tape from that week, the Thursday night game, and say, okay, we can't let Lil Jordan beat us, and we know that Wandale probably is not going to beat us. So, but I wish Dart would start to look for Lil Jordan, because I think he can be huge, especially on third down. Defensively for the Broncos, Jonathan Cooper had 1.5 sacks, 2 QB hits. Stranad had that big interception. You got Dondre Tellman got a sack. Malcolm Roach, Zach Allen, and Quandarius Robinson each got half a sack. So Surtain was fairly quiet. He only had 1 pass defended, but I think that's a case of like, why bother throwing his way? And maybe that was the case. It's like they just Denver decided, okay, Little Jordan Humphrey poses the biggest threat. Like, we don't want to have what happened to Philly happen to us. And so we're going to put our best guy on Little Jordan. And then, if they kill us with Wandale, they kill us with Wandale. But interesting box line from Surtain. And then Benito, Benito just had the 1 QB hit. So he was held for the most part. He had two total tackles. John Franklin Myers, again, another guy who's pretty good. 3 total tackles, 1 tackle for loss. And like Alex Singleton and Dre Greenlaw were all over the field. Talanoa Hufanga had 2 pass breakups, as did Zach Allen. So that was the offense. Giants defense versus the Broncos offense. Safety Javon Allen suffered a knee injury with 7:54 left in the second quarter. He was replaced by Dane Belton, the NFL leader in special teams tackles. And I think Belton held his own. He had one of the biggest, best hits I've seen from a Giants defender in a very long time. I think it was the pass. Was it 4th and goal? I think it was the 4th and goal in the second quarter with a little under 4 minutes left. It's 4th and goal from the 2, and Nix completes the pass short to Cortland Sutton on that like kind of bubble wide receiver screen, and Belton comes up and just lays the frickin' lumber. That was huge. He did let up a big pass in that second quarter to Cortland Sutton, where he was trying to help out Cordell Flott. That was on a 3rd and 8 at the Giants 37. But this is the drive that doesn't end in points it's turnover and downs for Denver. Earlier on in that drive, you had the 4th and 3 call at the Giants 42, and Nix goes left end for 3 yards, tackled by Dane Belton. So in the second quarter, under 4 minutes left from the Giants too. This was the preceding Dane Belton's hit on Cortland Sutton. You had Bo Nix incomplete pass to Troy Franklin, so good coverage there. You had, with 27 seconds left, 2nd and 14 from the Denver 20. This could be a situation where Denver can get 3, before the half is up. It doesn't sound like a lot, but we've been preaching and talking about the middle 8, like playing better with 4 minutes left in the first half and the first 4 minutes of the second half. Getting that stop at the end of the first half and not allowing points is huge, especially if Denver gets the ball back to start the second half, because then they can go down and score. And now they're down by 3, and it's like, shit, what happened? So Bo Nix gets sacked by Brian Burns for 6 yards on 2nd and 14 to end any kind of chances of a scoring possibility there. And Broncos converted just 2 of 8 first downs in the first half, while the Giants held them to 102 yards. Including the second half of Week 6 against the Eagles, the Giants pitched 5 consecutive shutout quarters heading into the fourth quarter in Denver. And just fell apart at the worst possible time. An all-time collapse. Paulson Adebo, as we mentioned, left the third quarter with a knee injury. Deonte Banks took his place. Broncos offense. This is from Bobby Spence at Post Crab Court. The Broncos offense with Paulson Adebo at corner for the Giants. 7 drives, 111 total yards, 4 sacks taken, 0 points. Which that's not right. We only had 2 sacks, right? Broncos offense with Deonte Banks at corner for the Giants. 5 drives, 295 total yards, 0 sacks, 33 points. Deonte Banks needs to go. Yes. Affirmative. Big Blue Film Room at Big Blue Film Room at X doubled down on the Deonte Banks detraction. Deonte Banks versus the Broncos on Sunday. 4 targets, 3 catches, 40 yards, 1 touchdown. That's via Next Gen Stats and Jordan Raynon. Yeah, I mean, you had in the fourth quarter with a little over 2 minutes, we're up by 3. It's 3rd and 11. And Denver's at their own 31. Bo Nix hits a pass deep right to Marvin Mims for 31 yards on Andrew Phillips. Again, Drew Phillips. Want him to be better. And now under 2 minutes, 1st and 10 for the Giants, 18. Bo Nix goes around the left end for the 18-yard touchdown. Again, where's the defense on that? How do you let that happen? How do you let him get so goddamn free? Another big play, not in our favor. Fourth quarter, a little under 7 minutes left. 4th and 2 from the Giants 44. We're up 26-8. Nix throws an incomplete pass to Pat Bryant, but there's a penalty on Drew Phillips for DPI. So no play, 1st down, extends the drive, and they're able to go down and score. Drew Phillips. Allowing big plays, big explosive chunk plays, or getting crucial flags and penalties called against him. And the reason why he's getting these penalties called against him, it's for holding and DPI, which means you're getting beat. So you're either getting beat, the guy catches it for a big gain, or you're getting beat and you have to hold or interfere, flag against you, another big gain. So I would say that he's probably not the long-term solution, at least not with this coaching staff. They have not been able to figure it out through 7 weeks with him. So hope to God that Adebo is not seriously injured and that he's able to come back for the Eagles game. If not, we're in a deep doo-doo. At the beginning of the fourth, 2nd and 8 from the Giants 14, we're up 19-0. That's where Nix hits a pass complete to Troy Franklin for 12 yards, setting him up at the 2. You had another play, 2nd and 10 on the Giants 19 with a little less than 6 minutes left. We're up 26-8. Bo Nix completes the pass short right to Tyler Beatty for 12 yards. 2nd and 7 with a little over 5 minutes left in the game. We're up 26-14. Bo Nix scrambles right end for a 7-yard touchdown. Oh my God. And then a little over 2 minutes left. Nix hits Evan Engram for the big 20-yard gain, tackled by Dane Belton. At that point, we're up 3. And then with 33 seconds left, Nix hits that deep pass down the middle to Mims for 29 yards. They're at their own 23, 1st and 10, first play of that last drive. We're up by 2, and just can't have it happen. Cannot have it happen. They were out of timeouts. Son of a bitch. Benjamin Solak at Benjamin Solak said, great stat from Elias Sports and ESPN Stats and Info. Bo Nix is the first player in NFL history to record 2 or more passing touchdowns and 2 or more rushing touchdowns in 1 quarter. Crazy game from Daniel Jones in 2023 in the second half against the Cardinals, where he was the first ever to do whatever, and then in a half, and now you have Bo Nix doing it in a quarter. Marshall Green at _marshallscreen_ said the Giants are 1-2 in games they score 30 or more points. They have the 5th most expensive defense. This team was built to win on defense. Get a DC in there who can maximize this unit, because Shane Bowen puts a really low ceiling on this group. Yeah, full seal of approval there. Zane at This Is Not Zane. Russell Wilson led a game-winning drive in Dallas. Offense put up 37 points, and they lost. Dart led a game-winning drive in Denver. Offense put up 32 points, and they lost. Both times, Bowens rushed 3, and gave up chunks of yard to tie and lose the game. Yeah, that was the message that I saw ad nauseum on X, was just, how did Bowen not learn his lesson from the Dallas game? And you could say the same thing about Daboll and Schoen with the kicker situation. How have you not learned your lesson when it comes to the kicker? How have you not learned? And if you're not learning, that was Mara's big, that was the big takeaway from Mara's postseason press conference, after the season was over in early January of this year, 2025, was, I need to see progress. I need to see progress. Now, progress is a very ambiguous, vague term. It's like progress in terms of what? Wins, making the playoffs, certain metrics, certain categories. What are you judging progress on? If you're judging progress on learning your lesson, the Giants are not making progress because they keep making the same mistakes on defense at the end of games, tight games, winnable games, and they're not learning their lesson when it comes to the kicker. So I don't know. There's just there's so much evidence against this coaching staff and this front office that it's just overwhelming at this point. I cannot believe there have already been 26 games with a lead change in the final 2 minutes of the fourth quarter, the most through 7 weeks in NFL history. So it's a league-wide situation. It's not just the Giants that this is happening to. It's just feels like we could do better. Dan Schneider said, I still just can't get over the fact that in a gotta-have-it series/play, the Giants' defensive coordinator decided to leave Dexter Lawrence on the bench, with Dexter himself saying that he wanted to be out there. And they brought in Nick Jones and Bo Braid, 2 players I didn't know were on the roster, rush 3 and drop 8, hoping what? ? Braid or Jones make the play? Yeah. I agree. You might say, well, in thinking about rushing 3 and dropping 8, you think back to, if you're a longtime Giants fan who was around to see Super Bowl 25 when we played the Bills in Tampa, 1990-91 season. That's what Belichick did, was he's like, let's just rush our 3 best players. So at that time, it was LT, Leonard Marshall, and sucks I can't remember. But it's let's rush our 3 best pass rushers and drop 8. And then, it's Kelly will have all day to sit back there and survey the field, but he won't be able to find anyone, and he's not mobile, right? So that worked for the most part against the Bills, although we should have lost the game. A great game plan. We held a high-flying offense to 19 points, but if Norwood makes the kick, we lost, and it's people are looking back on that and saying, should we have done that? So, everything looks rosier and better when you get the win, but that could have been called into question had we lost. That's the only time I've really thought about rushing 3 and dropping 8 and it working, quote unquote. Against the Eagles, we switched to a zone where we're dropping a lot of guys, and Hurts couldn't find the open guy, and so we either get a coverage sack or Hurts would scramble and not gash us with big, huge plays with his legs. Why are you rushing 3 and dropping 8 against Denver? You have 4 good pass rushers, and this is why you have to call into question, is Dexter fully healthy with the dislocated elbow? Is Abdul Carter healthy after showing up late on the injury report? Seems like no. His hamstring is affecting him to the point where, he was down on the ground for a period of time, and then he just pops back up because someone was talking trash, and the Clem reporter said, oh, Abdul Carter is a crazy person. Cool. It's you were writhing in pain on the ground and someone talked shit and you bounce up. Okay. All right. So why is he not rushing? Why is Kayvon not rushing? Why is Brian Burns? Brian Burns got knocked up a little bit in this game too. I think he had to come out of the game. He was limping around. I forget when, but he was definitely limping around. So, we're all dinged up, but still, you got to figure that your 4 best guys rushing the passer. You think about the Eagles team that won the Super Bowl last season. Their ability to get after the quarterback with 4 pass rushers, just 4, leaving 7 guys in coverage. That's the ideal arrangement. That's what you're looking for from if you're a defensive coordinator. You have 4 solid pass rushers who can get after the quarterback and beat 5 to 6 protectors or blockers. and you can drop 7 in coverage. Nice. But you have 3 rushers. Dexter's not on the field. Where's Abdul Carter? That's like, what? We only have 30 seconds left in the fucking game. You're telling me your best players, your best pass rushers can't give you 30 fucking seconds of game clock to rush the passer? Now, admittedly, the Giants defense as a whole played 81 snaps this game. I'm pretty sure. 81 snaps. That's a lot of fucking snaps. And it might have been a situation where it's like, did we overplay our best 4 best pass rushers for 3 quarters and they were all gassed by the 4th quarter? That could be a contributor to all this. That being said, though, game's on the line. Step it up, dude. Step it up. And, after the Mims catch down the middle, Broncos are running to the line of scrimmage. Brian Burns is late getting back to the line of scrimmage. Broncos snap it, and Burns is offside. Now, keep in mind, we had a timeout left. The Clem report says, call your timeout if your player's offside, which is seems obvious, but not to this coaching staff. Again, you called a timeout when the clock was running out on the Eagles, and they were definitely not set up and going to snap that ball before the play clock expired. You called a timeout and saved them before the half last week, the previous week. Stupid move. This week, your guy is clearly going to be offside, and you don't call timeout to prevent the 5 yards. In a situation where it's like every yard matters where they are in the field, you gave him a bonus 5 yards for not being smart. WBG84 says the fact Brian Daboll kept that timeout in his pocket and decided not to use it when Burns still hadn't made it back to his side of the field to prevent the offsides penalty was another coaching game management blunder. Another avoidable mistake that led to disaster. For a smart guy, for a genius, it's just like, I don't know, man. I just don't see it. I don't see why people call him a guru or a genius or any of that stuff. I don't see it. There's only been like 1 or 2 instances where it's like, oh my God, that was so smart of him to do that. All I see is him on the sideline yelling and throwing his headset because what? He didn't do the right thing. He didn't do the right thing. Dan Duggan at DDuggan21 on X said, and here's the thing. That wasn't a play call made in a frantic situation mid-drive. They had plenty of time to decide how they were going to play that after Dart's touchdown, and Daboll always talks about how much they meet about situations during the week. Bowen didn't go rogue there. Daboll had to be on board with that approach. So fire Bowen, cut Jude, everyone's happy. Again, the problems run deeper. No, I mean, for me, it's, and there's like, I was listening to Bobby Skinner, and he's like, oh, I'm not going to blame Daboll. I was like, you have to blame Daboll, dude. Like, how do you not get together with Bowen and be like, hey, remember what happened in Dallas? Let's not do that again. If you didn't do that in prep, I mean, we had fucking 10 days to prepare for this game. 10 days. You've already been through this situation before in Dallas. How did you not get together and say, please do not do that again? And then you have players coming up, saying things after the game, basically disagreeing with the play calling and the scheme from the defensive coordinator. And this is after the fact that Burns and company had to go to Bowen and be like, hey, let's do this and not do this. Again, it's partially like the players should feel empowered to speak up and say their minds, especially if you're a veteran who's been there and has had success. Speak the fuck up. Talk to your coach and say, don't do this. The players have to be accountable and held responsible for speaking their minds, or at least have the space to do that and be like, no, coach, this doesn't work, or we're seeing this, we'd like to do this. Speak up, communicate. From the coach's standpoint, what the fuck, dude? The fact that your players know better than you, you're not a coach. I'm sorry. Connor Hughes at Connor_J_Hughes said, did not get the sense in the locker room that the Giants loved the final play calls on Broncos game-winning drive. As Brian Burns said, we rushed 3, dropped 8. Asked to expand, he chose not to answer. This was as emotional as I've seen the Giants. They're taking this hard. Giants Daily at NYG Daily said the defensive players admitted last week that they didn't have faith in Shane Bowen. Both Dexter Lawrence and Kayvon Thibodeau said they had to get on Bowen over his play calling / scheme, and now Brian Burns today. I mean, have you seen the clip of Dexter Lawrence answering a question about the play calling towards the end of the game yet? On X, just go to SNY. I think it's SNY Giants videos or something like that. They have a clip of Dexter Lawrence. Reporter asked a straightforward question. What do you think about the play calling at the end of the game? Dexter, it took every fiber of Dexter's being to not choke that reporter out and eat him whole. Not chew, swallow, whole. Because he's so pissed off and frustrated with how things are being called. He couldn't muster the energy or the patience. He just couldn't compose himself to answer that question. He did, but it took every ounce of his strength to withhold what he truly felt in that moment, because you could tell he wanted to yell and scream and go off, and he hated that he had to field that question, even though he has to understand why that question's being asked. He hated that he had to answer that question. He didn't want to answer that question. He wanted to you could tell he was steamed. He was fuming, and he wanted to take Shane Bowen down. He wanted to take down the coaches and the coaching staff. My pushback there is, which I just said, you're gonna, I guess the defense had a players only meeting, so that's not great. I mean, it's good that they had the players only meeting. But that means that's a bad sign, but it's also good that the unit feels so strongly about it that they need to get together and talk it out and figure it out themselves, because they don't have the faith and confidence in the coaching staff. I don't understand how anyone in the organization can hear that or see that and feel that and think, oh yeah, we're fine. We're the friggin' dog in the burning room with the coffee cup. We're fine. No, dude. No. But this is what the players, this is why I can't completely exonerate the players and say oh, they're not at fault here. Obviously you have to play and you have to follow orders, but same with Saquon, in that Saquon doc that I mentioned, he gives us the order, we follow the orders, and it's but that's very military, and this is not the military, as I wear my camo hat. More of a hunter's hat than military, but it's not the military. And I prefer that someone like a Dexter Lawrence and a Brian Burns can stand up and say, what the fuck are you doing? Put me in the fucking game. But that's just not their personality. It's just not within them to do that. But I wish it was. I wish they had the kind of confidence in themselves and in what they believe and feel and think about how this should pan out. And your defensive coordinator has failed you repeatedly failed you. So now it's time for you to take power and take control and take hold of the defense and say, no, coach, no. Get me out there, get Abdul Carter out there, get Burns, get Kayvon out there. Get us four out there, and we're going to hunt, and we're going to get after the quarterback. Especially when you're down Paulson Adebo, especially when you're down Javon Holland. You think the backups to Javon and Adebo were struggling as is. It's not like they're playing at a Pro Bowl level. They're not even top 50 at their position. So it's we're not doing well with them in the game. We're not going to do better without them in the game. So why would you take out? Yay, dude. They don't believe in Shane Bowen. I don't see how anyone could, People point to that Eagles game as oh, maybe Shane Bowen's figuring it out. It's no, the players are figuring it out, and they're dictating it to Shane Bowen. The inmates are running the asylum. Is that how the expression goes? Fuck, man. If we go by expected points contributed, the defense actually had the third worst game of the season behind the Commanders game and the Cowboys game. That Cowboys game was pretty brutal, dude. And I'm surprised that this game is behind the Commanders game, because I would have put this as similar to the Cowboys game in terms of expected points contributed. But again, you had 3 shutout quarters where you were dominating for 3 quarters. According to NFL research, the Broncos' 33 points in the fourth quarter are the most by any team that was shut out in the first 3 quarters in NFL history, dude. Oh my gosh. Like, people have been fired for less. People have been fired for less. I think it was like, what was it? Was it Rob Ryan? Who was it for the Jets where it was like, or was it the Raiders where it was Raiders Jets and they called an all-out blitz or something like that, and the other team scored to win the game on a deep shot and they were fired like Monday. But I guess that's, that's the difference between the Jets and the Giants. The Jets owner Woody Johnson will fire Robert Saleh after a 2-5 start last season. John Mara is not going to do that, especially with a defensive coordinator. And I'm trying to think back to the last time we had an in-season firing of a coordinator, and I think it was Jason Garrett in 2021. And then they ended up having Freddie Kitchens be the OC. 0 negative backlash if you fire him, like today. Monday, October 20th. Like 0 backlash. You're not going to have anyone defending him. You're not going to have anyone other than Carl Banks, which I had to I listened to the Believe podcast with Bob Papa and Carl Banks, and I'm starting to think maybe I shouldn't. And it's so weird because it's 1 week after I was like, well, they're so different from the other content creators and podcasters that are out there because they're able to give you this kind of next level, deeper insight and walk you through the X's and O's a little bit more, and they have a little bit closer to it so they can tell you, have a little more intel. For Banks to come out, I turned it off after like 2 minutes. I usually listen to the whole thing. They have like an hour-long podcast per episode, and Banks started talking, and this is where Carl can frustrate people because it's like, Carl, how do you watch that game and you don't say that Shane Bowen deserves 1,000,000% of the blame here? Like, how do you not want to see a different defensive coordinator in the mix here when you have the talent that you have on that side of the ball, especially along the front of the line? And we're a bottom 10 defense. Ugh. And I just felt like he was making excuses and he was putting the onus on the players again. And it's just like, all right, dude, I had to turn it off. I was like, Carl, this is one of those situations where I don't know if you're just trying to be a contrarian, and you're like, everyone's saying this, everyone's zigging, so I'm zagging. Is that the kind of approach that Carl has? Because Carl keeps his composure, and, but you have to feel like this is getting to him. It has to be getting to him. It was getting to him, after that Saints game, but I couldn't listen to it anymore. I was like, Carl, this is not the time, man. You're going to, he was blaming Jackson Dart. That's what it was. Excuse me. Banks is like, yeah, if the rookie quarterback doesn't throw the pick there, I think the defense feels a lot better. And he's like, Tiki Barber made a great point in the postgame show, and Tiki's another one where it's like, I respect Tiki and Carl. I think they're, extremely poignant about the points that they make, and they make some great points a lot of the time. But sometimes it's just so frustrating because it's like, what? Carl's referencing that Tiki was essentially putting a lot of blame on Dart for the interception. Like, you need to be better with the ball. You can't turn over the ball, which, yeah, you do. Okay, I get it. But to say, like, that's the turning point, and to say, like, that, I mean, yes, it is. That does make everyone on edge, right? But for then I believe the way he said it was, Tiki said that after a bad turnover in which the defense gives up a score after the Giants have a turnover, Tiki would go up to the defense and say, it's not your fault, it's not your fault, right? And so he really appreciates that about Tiki, and like, all of a sudden, Carl and Tiki have deflected attention away from the complete failure that was a defensive game plan heading down even after that Dart pick. So, okay, Dart pick, Denver scores. Denver's still losing. Like, it was 26-16 when Dart threw the pick, I'm pretty sure. Denver scores, it's 26-23. You're still up by 3. Defense needs to hold. Okay, so you didn't hold on that because the opponent got the ball in your territory. Okay, fine. But like to deflect the attention and blame away from the defensive players and the defensive play caller, it's just ludicrous, dude. It makes me question what the hell they're thinking. So I just disagree with that approach and just like, what? Okay. we're gonna put this on Dart. All right, cool. We're not gonna put it on Deontay Banks, who yet again did not learn his lesson. Where you have a quarterback scrambling to the left, you are the furthest guy outside. You are containment. You are supposed to contain. You stay on the outside shoulder of the guy that's blocking you, and he jumped inside again. And Nick's, what does he do? He goes right outside and goes for the big gain or the touchdown. I forget which. Literally just happened, like, was it last week, 2 weeks ago? It's a recurring theme with Deontay Banks. What the fuck? But yeah, it's Dart's fault. Stupid. Like, we're not going to put any onus on Drew Phillip for not being able to cover. We're not going to put any onus on Deontay Banks. It's like, are you kidding me? Brian Burns, still a bright spot. I was really worried when he was limping around the field. But Brian Burns moved his season sack total to 9. It's the 7th straight season that Burns has recorded 7.5 sacks or more. He is the 8th player in NFL history to begin his career with 7 consecutive seasons of 7.5 or more sacks, joining Yannick Ngakoue, Aaron Donald, Ryan Kerrigan, DeMarcus Ware, Jared Allen, Derek Thomas, and Reggie White. Woo, baby. Some great company to be in. So, yeah, worth every penny, as someone said on X. Has been worth every penny. And what sucks is, like, that's what Joe Schoen is going to put. That's the feather in Joe Schoen's cap, is like, oh, look, see? Brian Burns, huh? Burns recorded 2 sacks in back-to-back games for the first time in his career. He is the first Giant since Olivier Vernon to have multiple sacks in 2 straight contests. OV did it at Cleveland in Thanksgiving week 2016, and then at Pittsburgh the following week, December 4th, 2016. So Olivier Vernon had a great 2016, not so great 2017, and then didn't do much after that. So since sacks became an official statistic in 1982, Burns is the 4th Giant to total 9 or more sacks through the first 7 games in a season, joining Dexter Lawrence last season, who had 9 sacks through his first 7, Michael Strahan in that single sack season record, 2001, 12.5 sacks, and then Leonard Marshall, 11.5 sacks in 1985. Pretty good. Dane Belton led the team with 10 combined tackles. Drew Phillips had 9 tackles. Muasau had 6. Okereke 6. Adebo had 4 before he left the game. Cordell Flott had 2 passes defended. Roy Robertson Harris had a knockdown, a pass batted down, as did Darius Alexander and Victor Dimukuhe, who the Giants picked up in the offseason but had missed time due to injury. And Roy Robertson Harris also had 2 QB hits, which is good to see. Dexter Lawrence had the 1 QB hit, 1 pass defended, 1 tackle. Kayvon only 1 tackle. Nacho had a pass defended. Abdul Carter had 3 tackles. And yeah, I mean, Cordell Flott continues to impress. And as many have mentioned, teams are targeting him and trying to pick on him, and he's just not having it. So, but the Paulson Adebo loss is huge. If he's out for this game against Philly, we're in big, deep doo-doo. J.K. Dobbins rushed for 81 yards on 14 carries with a long of 32. Mims had that nice carry for 13 yards. He also had 6 catches on 7 targets for 85 yards. Cortland Sutton, 6 catches for 87 yards on 10 targets. Evan Engram, 5 catches, 42 yards on 8 targets. Troy Franklin had 10 targets, but only 3 catches for 19 yards, but he did have the touchdown. Yeah, Bo Nix, 5 carries, 48 yards, 2 touchdowns. It's just like we forgot. Mr. Chicken at 5 on it on X said, if giving up 30 and a quarter ain't enough to get someone fired, I don't know what is. It's a great statement, dude. It's like we mentioned in the intro, it's one of the biggest blown leads in franchise history in the top 10. We've now had 2 of the biggest blown leads in franchise history in the past 3 weeks. It has cost us 3 wins the defense has. So, yeah, we could very well be 5-2 right now instead of 2-5. Special teams. The Giants' special teams enter Week 7 ranked top 5 in both kickoff and punt return coverage. And this was the worst game of the season by expected points contributed. Jude McAtamney missed an extra point attempt for the second consecutive game. He missed 2 extra points. Bobby Skinner at Bobby Skinner _ said, I can't believe they left their lives in the hands of someone who was not starting kicker at Rutgers and was on the team due to an international exemption. He also said Jude McAtamney missing extra points distracts from the fact that Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll were fine using a kicker for the rest of the season who they didn't trust to kick 50 or more yarders, 50-plus yarders. There were a couple times in this game where it's like, we're in their territory, it's going to be a 50-plus yarder, and they opted to punt or go for it. Giants Daily at NYG Daily said the Giants punted from the Broncos' 41 and 42-yard line. Their play calling on third down on both those possessions were not of a team that wanted to kick a field goal. They didn't trust Jude to kick 50-plus yard field goals, but kept him as their starting kicker. Mind-boggling. If you don't trust your kicker to make 50-plus yard field goals, go find one that can. I mean, and these are fans. Like, these are not even, like, professional. We have jobs. Well, I don't have a job, but, most people, we're not dedicating our lives to this, and yet everyone to a T is like, how the fuck did you allow this to happen again? The Giants Wire at the Giants Wire. While about 50% of the league has found themselves kickers that hit from 60-plus with seeming ease, we ain't got one. Jared Schwartz at JSchwartz115 on X said, so many reasons the Giants lost that game, but the biggest was that they played yet another game without an NFL caliber kicker. Jude McAtamney lost his job at Rutgers University his senior season in 2023. He's never attempted a kick over 40 yards in the NFL. He is not an NFL kicker. And boy, oh boy, you look at his stats from Rutgers. His junior year, 2022, he was 12 of 18 on field goal attempts. That's a field goal percentage of 66.7. He was 3 of 3 from 20 to 29, 4 of 7 from 30 to 39, 0 for 2 on 50-plus yarders, and 5 of 6 from 40 to 49. Barstool New York at Barstool NYC said Jude McAtamney was a 63% kicker in college. What could Chris Mara or Joe Schoen have possibly seen to justify signing him? Again, it's that international fucking thing where you have to have a player from an international, I don't know, dude. Lawrence Tynes at LT4 Kicks, someone who knows about clutch kicks. Hate being critical of kickers, and I love the international program, but McAtamney is not an NFL kicker. I tend to believe the guy that sent us to a couple Super Bowls. I tend to believe him a little bit more than I do the fan. If you're just going to be like, fans, they don't, whether they know. Like, well, former NFL player who's been there and done that should know. The Entertainer said, in the last 2 years, the Giants have lost probably 4 or 5 games because they didn't have a reliable kicker. Still don't quite understand how the Giants, at the very least, didn't bring in a more reliable kicker to compete with Gano in training camp with his recent injury history. Yeah, no clue, dude. And because you didn't cut Gano and save $3 million, you now had to restructure the contracts of the guys who just signed free agent contracts, Javon Holland and Paulson Adebo. At Scatadart said signing Gano has costed us like 5 games. Yeah, for sure. Chad Forbes at NFL Draft Bites said Joe Schoen and his staff are employed to know the best 50 to 60 place kickers on planet Earth. The player that they signed when Graham Gano got injured is not in the top 500 kickers on the planet. Oh my God. That's from like an NFL draft expert said that. Giants Daily at NYG Daily. How can you trust a front office and coaching staff when they can't even do the easy and most simple things correctly? Like finding a kicker. Like just find a fucking kicker. The Entertainer added, if we had a top 10 coaching staff, I believe strongly we'd be at least 5-2 against a gauntlet of a schedule. He was quoting a post from a kid called Chris at Sifboy, who said it's not that unrealistic to think with better coaching and play calling we could be 5-2 should it beat Dallas, New Orleans, and Denver, all away from MetLife as well. This was meant to be the toughest schedule in the league this year. We are beating ourselves week in and week out. Yeah. We lost that Dallas game. We lost that Saints game. We lost that Broncos game. At Dan Schneider said, if anyone is looking for a simple way we know that Brian Daboll is not it for the Giants, ask any fan if they felt like the game was over. Their answer is no, in spite of this stat. This is a stat that we've had a lot of crazy stats in the Brian Daboll era. Crazy. Never before seen in NFL history. Never happened in 80 plus years. Never happened in 100 plus years. Never happened before Brian Daboll became head coach of the New York fucking Giants. This one takes the cake. There were 1,602 straight times that a team was up 18 points with 6 minutes left in the game that a team won. 1,600 straight times that a team who's been up by 18 points, at least 18 points, with 6 minutes left in the game, they won every single time. I'll just run it back one more time. 1,602 consecutive games where the team leading by 18 points with 6 minutes left won the game. More than 1,600 times a team has been up by 18 points with 6 minutes left. They have won every single time, 1,602 times in a row. Death, taxes, being up by 18 with 6 minutes left. 100% success rate. Until Brian Daboll's New York Giants. The first team to lose a game being up by 18 points with 6 minutes left in 1,602 games. I mean, what? As I have to believe that there has never been a head coach to have that kind of fucking out of control stat and go on to win in the playoffs, go to the playoffs, win the playoffs, and win the Super Bowl. I beg you, I challenge you to find a head coach who has overcome that. You're not going to be able to find it. You're not going to be able to find it. Every single fucking indicator and sign is pointing to you moving on from this dude. Schoen has to be hanging by a thread at this point. I mean, Daboll's as good as gone. I was saying this to my buddy. He's like, so legitimately, how many more wins do you think you have in this season? Like, what do you think? Over and a half, 5.5 wins. That was the initial line that the Vegas was putting out there. 5.5 wins, over under. What do you think? I was gonna say, well, with Russell Wilson, it was for sure an under. We know that. With Jackson Dart, you start to look at towards the tail end of the season, like we're in the midst of a pretty rough patch here where it's gonna be like Eagles, Niners, Bears, Lions, Packers. It's a lot of tough games. Patriots. You look at the last 4 games, it's Commanders at home, Cowboys at home, Vikings at home, Raiders away. All 4 of those feel winnable. It's not like, oh, with Jackson Dart in the mix, it feels like, and, with Jaden Daniels getting hurt and going down, and the Cowboys defense still being suspect, the Raiders getting trounced, the Vikings not looking that good. I could see us winning out the rest of the season, the last 4 games. And we're at 2 wins now, so that puts us at 6 wins. So yeah, I said the over. And he's like, oh, it would really suck if you win 7 or 8 games, like you're in a tough position. And I said, no, we're not. Not for me. That's not a tough position. I know before I said, I put out the question, like if Russell Wilson goes 8-9 and you make the playoffs, or Russell Wilson goes 9-8 and you make the playoffs, now you're in a tough spot. I'm not in a tough spot anymore. I've seen enough of this fucking dude to last me a lifetime. I don't care if this team makes the playoffs. He's gone after the season. What would it take for me to actually think that Brian Daboll can continue to be the head coach for the New York Giants? We have to make the playoffs, and we have to win 2 playoff games. That's where I am with Brian Daboll. You're not just going to sneak into the playoffs and lose a wild card, and everyone's like, yay, yeah, Brian Daboll. So 7 or 8 wins, he gone. To me, that's not progress. And I cannot believe that John Mara is going to sit there and be like, well, 7 and 8 is more than 6, and it's more than 3. Ooh. Nope. You can't do that. You can't do that. 7 or 8 wins is not going to get the job done. And making the playoffs is not going to get the job done for making your job safe. Because we are winning based on the fucking moxie, quote unquote, and swagger of Cam Scatterbo and Jackson Dart and Brian Burns. We are not winning because of coaching. So if we go to the playoffs, great. He's still gone after the season. We need to make the playoffs. We need to win a wild card game, and we need to win a divisional game, and we need to get to the championship, conference championship. And if we get to the conference championship with this team, congratulations. You bought yourself another season. But I can't, no. You make the playoffs at like, and shit goes sideways for a bunch of teams, and we squeak in at like 9 and 8. No. And you lose in the wild card. All right, thanks, but no thanks. That's where I'm at with Brian Daboll and this crew, because you're losing us games with your coaching. And if we win games, it's not because of your coaching. We're winning games because the players are putting the games on their freaking backs and winning it. Timo Risk at PFF_Moo said the Giants scored 5 touchdowns. The Broncos scored 4 touchdowns and 1 field goal. Broncos won. Even when forgetting about how exactly this unfolded, it's just the ultimate bad team stay bad moment. Yeah, and that we're a bad team right now because our coaches are bad. Giants Daily added, the Giants lost 2 games this season because of the kicking situation, coming out of last year where they lost a game because of the kicking situation. They lost 2 games this season because the defensive coordinator doesn't know situational awareness and calling a defense in the final seconds of the game. Anthony Rivardo said the Giants team has talent. When they lose, they beat themselves. It's a coaching issue. Yep. Dan Schneier said no future with Brian Daboll. Brian Daboll is not the only reason they lost, but I've tracked this team his entire tenure. Daboll coaches not to lose rather than to win. That's a hopeless mentality. Run, pass those last 2 possessions. McAtamney over Koo despite that missed extra point. Yeah. I heard Bobby Skinner kind of defending Daboll in the play calling and Kafka in the play calling in the fourth quarter, saying, he disagrees that run, pass is the wrong move here, but you have to understand the Eagles defense is not the Broncos defense. So while you're able to run and have success against the Eagles defense using that kind of approach where it's run, and then you have to pass, you feel better doing that against an Eagles defense. The Broncos defense, what was working for you in the 3 quarters, and why did you abandon it in the 4th? What was working in the first 3 quarters, and why did you abandon it on defense in the 4th? I think it's primarily because Paulson Adebo is out of the game and Deonte Banks is in the game. Also, McAtamney would he make the first kick, miss the second kick? Then you go for 2, then he makes a kick, then he misses a kick. So it's like, so stupid. Even Retro Bowl chimed in, a game that I love to play when the season's over. And I usually start cranking it up in October, November, and December. When I know the Giants season is over, I'm like, I'm going to play Retro Bowl as the Giants and win another 17 Super Bowls. And that'll make me feel better. Spoiler alert, it doesn't. Retro Bowl chimed in saying, this is the most Retro Bowl in real life game that we've ever seen. What a game. Yep. And I've been on the wrong end of that Retro Bowl game, and it fucking stinks. Where I'm up 3 touchdowns, and then it's like turnover, touchdown, go for it on 4th, miss it, they go down, touchdown, they win. Time expires. Really cool. I mean, you look at this win probability graph, and it's just like insane. So we were at 50 or more % win probability from about halfway through the first quarter all the way to just about halfway through the 4th quarter. And then it goes all the way down to 0, and then it goes all the way up to 90% and then goes all the way down to 0%. Next Gen Stats said the Broncos win probability was as low as 0.7% with 6 minutes and 38 seconds left in the 4th quarter, facing a 4th and 3 trailing 26-8. It's the most improbable comeback of the season, and 8th most improbable of the next-gen stats era since 2016. And I find it hard to believe. I would love to know what the other comebacks are because, god damn, 19 points in the fourth. You scored 33. Oh, boy. Doug Analytics said the Broncos scored 33 points in the fourth quarter versus the Giants, tied for the 5th most in a single quarter since at least 1999. It's the most points in a fourth quarter after being shut out through 3 quarters, and 11 more than any team has scored in a quarter this season. The Entertainer said this went from being one of the best regular season wins in years to being one of the worst in my lifetime. I'm still stunned. And I'm here to say I disagree. I disagree. I'm not stunned about this. I'm not, especially after watching what happened against Dallas. Especially watching what happened in a lot of other games where it's like we're in it, we're close, and then our defense just fails at the worst possible time. Other than the Eagles game and the Chargers game, where our defense actually came up big, more times than not, the defense is failing us, and more times than not, it's because the defensive coordinator doesn't know how to game plan and scheme in those crucial downs and distances late in the game. You didn't think you had it at 19-0? Nope. You didn't think you had it at 26-8? Nope. Nope. And this is why. At the Clem Report, Barstool Clem said, in a sick way, the last 10 years of Giants football prepared me for that perfectly. Like, yep. It's all started with that I guess you could say the 2014 season is when it really started. But 2014, we had a bunch of blown leads that we'll get into. 2015, we just could not close out games defensively. It happened a couple times in 2016. You had all kinds of games against like Eagles where they're kicking last minute 60+ yard field goals. The Vikings, like it's just we've seen this show before. Has it been to this level or extent in a while? No, but that doesn't mean that we're still new to this. Like it's just we've seen this play out this way for so many times over the past 11 years, 12 seasons. El Jefe said, if I could script a game to lose in impossible fashion just to explain what it's like to be a Giants fan, that would be it. At Jefe Pill on X. I love their New York Revival. They're such a good podcast. And I love El Jefe. Hit the nail on the head, dude. This is what a Giants fan is ever since 2012. Mr. Glass Half Full at Mr. GHF on X said, don't think I've ever been as angry as I am right now as a Giant fan, teetering on the edge of rage and sadness. I also don't think I've been as proud as I am right now of the guys in the building and the direction this team is heading since the Super Bowl years. Yeah, the dichotomy and the conflicting feeling, internal struggle that we have as Giants fans now. It's like, okay, we don't feel as hopeless as we have over the past, I don't know how many years since from 2017 to now. 2022, it's like that was probably when we're like, okay, we finally figured it out. We're finally on the right path. And then, I went to shit the next season. So yeah, you have a quarterback, you have a running back. It seems like you have an offensive line, although I'm not as high on the offensive line as some other people. Like it's great that they're performing well, but it's like the moment that Andrew Thomas gets hurt, it all goes haywire. So I still don't have confidence in the offensive line. And defensive line should be top 5, if not the best front in the league, but you're getting sabotaged by a secondary that just cannot figure it out. So I'm not on the edge of rage. I am just so depressed because I know that this team can win games but won't because of the coaching staff. That's where I'm at. It's like the games are fun, and that's what the bar was heading into the season, was like, let's make the games fun, let's make them entertaining to watch, let's make them exciting to watch, and they are. But it's also like we all have to come to the understanding that we're not going to the playoffs, and if we do, I just don't see us making a run because our coaching staff, they are holding us back for sure. Jordan Raynon said that Giants fans know a little something about heartbreak. The Giants have 3 losses when leading by 19 or more points over the last 20 seasons. The rest of the NFL has 3 combined. The last loss when leading by 19 or more in the fourth quarter was the Deshaun Jackson punt return game, aka the Miracle at the Meadowlands 2. And that's following, well, he says last 20 seasons. You can go back even 25 seasons, and we have that wild card game against the Niners. Jack Settleman, at Jack Settleman, said the Jets and Giants are a social experiment to see how much pain humans can handle. Sums it up. It's like, well, at least we're not the Jets. That's what the Giants can say. At least we're not the Jets, because the Jets look putrid. 6 total points against the Panthers. Fields was benched. They can't even get one of their best offensive weapons, the ball. Breece Hall had like 10 touches. So stupid. Gary Myers said the 3 most crushing losses for the Giants this century. 2002 wild card against the Niners, up 38-14 in San Francisco. In the third quarter, lose 39-38. 2010, up 31-10 in the fourth quarter against the Eagles, lose 38-31 in Deshaun Jackson's punt return. And then today, up 19-0 in the fourth quarter, and then up 32-30 after scoring touchdown with 37 seconds left, lose 33-32. Yeah, I mean, I guess you could put it in that order. I mean, we had that 2002 wild card was an absolute nightmare. I just remember watching that unravel and being like, what? And then to have it end like that was especially excruciating, because it should have been Passner. Like, was it Rich Seubert was called for illegal? Was it Rich Seubert? Yeah, was called for a legal man downfield when he was actually reported eligible, and should have been pass interference, which would have set us up at the 5 or the 10, and then we have got to make the field goal then to win the game, but that's what make it extra painful. The Miracle at the Meadowlands, yeah, was just awful. I've said it before, but for any new listeners, I remember being at halftime talking to my cousin and being like, we're going to the Super Bowl. We're going to win the goddamn Super Bowl in 2010. And then big chunk play after big chunk play after big chunk play in the second half. And then by the time Deshaun Jackson returned the punt, it was just felt like that was the fitting end to that, that debacle. So I would not put this, as high as them, obviously. Is it the 3rd most crushing loss in Giants this century since 2000? Well, we'll see. I did a whole rundown of that, which I'll have later on. Tommy at TommyG105 said, results, results, results. Tired of hearing the process is going well and everything is going in the right direction. This is year 4, and there is a real chance this team will win under 5 games. There have been positives like Jackson Dart, Cameron Scadaboo in the offensive line, the D-line, etc. But when the game was on the line in Dallas and against the Broncos, this coaching staff coached scared and beat themselves in the process. This group hasn't recovered from being the premature toast of the town after beating the Vikings in the wild card game in January 2023. Since that game, Joe Schoen, Brian Daboll, and Mike Kafka are 11-30. 10 more games of this. Results. Yeah, results. I mean, you want to talk about progress, just not getting the results. It's one thing if you beat the Saints and you beat the Cowboys and you beat the Broncos and you're 5-2. If you're 5-2 right now, we're not talking about your job, because you did the right thing. You coached the right way in New Orleans. You coached the right way in Dallas. You coached the right way at the end of the game in Denver. We are now tied. The Giants are now tied for 2nd worst record in the NFC with the Arizona Cardinals, and we're only one game better than the Saints, who beat us. And while the Saints loss was one of the 50 biggest blown leads in franchise history at 11-point lead blown, the 19-point lead that Daboll's team blew against the Broncos is the 5th biggest blown lead in franchise history. I do not think that Daboll should get another season to top a lot of his predecessors, but we still have 10 games. So we could see a bunch more blown leads where we look back after the season, years down the line, and we say, man, oh man, if we just had a defense that could hold on to leads, we could have possibly gone on the playoffs and gone on a run. But, I don't know how many chances, I believe in second chances, sometimes a third chance. I wish I had some second and third chances in my life, but I didn't get them. So why should he get them? And why should Shane Bowen get them? And why should Shane get them? Like, I feel like they've gotten enough chances to prove themselves and have not. So thank you for your service and Godspeed. All right, so let's do a preview of the Eagles game. Giants are now at 2-5. Eagles are at 5-2. If you go by expected win-loss, we should be 3-4 or 4-3. And as I mentioned, you could even be 5-2. Philly, if you go by their expected win-losses, they could be 3-4 or 4-3. So it feels like we're very, I know it's crazy to say out loud, but it feels like we're pretty evenly matched here. It's wild to think. And, I've been preaching and hailing the end of the Eagles for a few years now, and it's just not quite happening. So I wouldn't put it past the Eagles to just put all what's happened to them in the early part of the season behind them and just go off. But this is not this, I don't know, it's not the same old Eagles. Like, they're not this dominant force that they were in 2024. I mean, this preview is going to be fairly similar to what I said for the Week 6 preview on the Thursday Night Football, although, I thought coming off that Saints loss that we were going to get our shit pushed in. And this time around in this preview, I think it's going to be another close one. But just knowing our history in Philadelphia and having just gone over all the biggest blown leads that we've had over the past however many years in Philadelphia, it's just a place that's very hard to win for us, even when we're playing their backups and backups and backups. Like, we just do not win in Philadelphia. We haven't won there in a long time. Could Jackson Dart change all that? Would be nice. And this is like probably our best opportunity to do that, because even in the 1 week that we've been away from each other, the Eagles and Giants, like, I don't know that Eagles win against the Vikings really shows anyone anything different from what we've seen to make us think that, oh, Philly's this much improved unit that we hadn't faced 2 weeks ago. I do think the difference, though, is that if Jalen Carter comes back, if we don't have Paulson Adebo, if Darius Slayton is out again, if Quinyon Mitchell, it's a lot has to do with like the injury report and seeing how that pans out. Because if Jalen Carter comes back and Quinyon Mitchell comes back and we still don't have Slayton and now Paulson Adebo is out, I think you're going to see a different outcome than what we had in Week 6. But here we are, Week 8. Sunday, October 26th, 2025. Start time at 1 p.m. at Lincoln Financial Field. The Eagles are favored by 7. So all the positive momentum that the Giants have been building, and the good feelings the better feelings we have about this team following, the beatdown that we put on the Eagles in Week 6. Vegas is still like, don't really see it. So still giving the Eagles 7, and the over-under is 43. I do think this is going to go over, and I do think the Giants cover. So I know that I have been like absolutely frigid when it comes to my picks and selections and predictions for over-unders and money lines and points. So don't take my word for it. And, I mean, I was the one that said that take the Eagles and the under in that Week 6 game on Thursday night, and it was complete opposite. So I'm hoping that maybe I'm wrong in a good way this week by saying taking the Giants at +7 and taking the over at 43. Maybe the Giants win outright and it goes under. I don't know. Last 5 matchups, we had that really huge win on Thursday Night Football that made everyone sit up and pay attention and say, maybe this isn't the same old Giants. We've looking at, you want to talk about just having zero success against a franchise. The Giants, in terms of going head-to-head with the Eagles, it was so close and neck for so long. And the Eagles have just pulled away with this thing, going back past the 5. I mean, I guess you could say, oh my God. I mean, look at this stretch, dude. So many L's. I mean, the only times that we really had success against the Eagles were 81 So November, I mean, there was a stretch. Oh my God. Okay, let's just go back. We've played them 188 times. There have been 188 games in this rivalry, only 5 times in the postseason. And Eagles own the series 96-90 with 2 ties. And so we pretty much owned the Eagles from 1933 to 1943. The Eagles then dominated us from 44 to 49. We had a nice little run from 1950 to 1959, I'll say. No, I'll say to 63. Yeah, so from 1950 to 1963, we pretty much owned the Eagles. We continued to best them. We got swept in 64, but we swept them in 65. They swept us in 66. We won 3 straight from 68 to 60, or 67 to 68. They took 3 straight from us from 70 to 71. So it was back and forth. But then from like 73 to 81, we won 1 time. We make a lot of comparisons from the mid 2010s Giants to present era to the 70s. We make a lot of comparisons there, and it's this is where it's like it hurts the most. From 73 to 81, we won once in 1975. And then started to heat up against the Eagles from 81 to 87. And then Parcells really struggled against the Eagles in 88, 89, and 90. And then Hanley could not beat the Eagles in 91, 92. So there was, we won 1 of 9 games from 88 to 91 or 92. Yuck. Then we won 4 straight under Dan Reeves in 93 and 94. Lost 4 straight under Dan Reeves in 95, 96. And then we beat the Eagles from 97 to 2001, including that playoff game, that 2000 regular season playoff game in January 2001. So we won, 8 straight, and then we lost 3 in a row. From 01 to 04, we only won 1 of 7 games. Yuck. 2005, we swept them. 2006, we split and then lost in that wild card game. Won 3 straight against them from 2007 to 2008 before losing in 2008 at home. Ugh. I think I remember that game. And then ended up losing to them in the playoffs at home again. Jesus. And then this is where it gets really ugly. So since 2000, so if you go from December 7th, 2008 to present day, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 wins. 8 wins in, oh my God, 34 games? Are we really 8 and 26? Yuck, dude. So since winning against the Eagles in Philly on my birthday, I think it was like the day after my grandfather died, the day he died. It was my birthday in 2008, and I think he died that weekend or 2 days before that. That's depressing. We're 0-4 on the road. And meanwhile, Philly's 3-1 at home, so it doesn't give me a whole lot of hope for this season. I mean, for this game. The Eagles are now +4 in takeaway differential, which is 8th best in the league, and that's primarily because their offense just does not turn the ball over. It was like for us to get a fumble recovery and an interception against them, it's like unheard of for that team. So you're gonna have to hope that the defense can come up big again. Which, who knows? Maybe they come out pissed off against Philly after blowing it against Denver. You saw what happened when we blew the lead against the Saints in Week 5. We come back against the Philly and put a whooping on them. So maybe that trend will continue. It's weird seeing this Eagles offense be so futile. 30th in rushing yards per game and 22nd in passing yards per game. But the 30th in rushing yards per game is a little cray-cray. And their defense is not the defense that Philadelphia has been accustomed to over this run that they've had, going to the Super Bowl and winning going to the Super Bowl 3 times, winning 2 times. 19th in passing yards allowed per game and 22nd in rushing yards allowed per game. They had that Sunday night win against the Cowboys in Week 1, 24-20. Beat the Chiefs in Kansas City 20-17. Beat the Rams, who always give them trouble, 33-26 at home. They go to Tampa, who's always given them trouble, and they have not had a lot of success against, and they beat them in Tampa 31-25, and then they fall apart against Denver at home, where they were up 17-3 and lose 21-17, so that's a huge blown lead. Get stomped by us on Thursday night in New York, and then they go to Minnesota and they win 28-22. They only had 45 rushing yards in that win against Minnesota, and put up a lot of passing yards, 316 passing yards. That's the most of the season for Jalen Hurts. The defense gave up 387 total yards, which is the most that the defense has given up in a game this season, and 298 passing yards allowed. Only 89 rushing yards. So it's the fewest amount of rushing yards allowed by the defense, but also the most passing yards allowed. They did get 2 turnovers, though. So the offense had its second best game of the season against Minnesota in Week 7 in terms of expected points contributed, just narrowly coming in second behind their Week 1 output against Dallas. And their defense, a minus 0.99 performance, which is, middle of the pack, middle of the road. Special teams, though, minus 5.57. It was their worst game of the season for that unit. They're still first in red zone percentage on offense. I think they were at 93% when they faced us on Thursday Night Football in Week 6. They're now at 82.4%. They've scored on 14 times and 17 visits in the red zone. They are 29th in third down percentage on offense, 26th on defense. And they're 6th in fourth down percentage on offense and 5th on fourth down percentage on defense. So it makes me think, hey, let's not get the fourth down. Let's just make sure that we do not allow them to get into a position where we're getting into fourth down or they're getting into fourth down. Their offense is like average to slightly below average, 8th in total points scored, but 14th in points per game. They're tied for the second fewest giveaways. They only have the 1 pick, which came against us. Cordell Flott stole the ball, and they're tied for the lowest interception percentage. They're bottom 7 in scoring percentage and third lowest turnover percentage. So they're not turning over the ball, but they're also not scoring a ton. They, in terms of passing offense, 5th fewest first downs by passing, 7th highest completion percentage. I think they're around 70% there. They have the 8th highest yards per attempt and the 4th highest QB rating, but they've also allowed the 6th most sacks and the 5th highest sack percentage. So hopefully Brian Burns is not too banged up. Abdul Carter is not feeling that hammy too much. Dexter Lawrence's elbow is maybe a little bit better, and Kayvon, they're able to create some havoc and take advantage of that and put some pressure on Jalen. It's not like we got a ton of pressure on Jalen in that Thursday night game, but we were able to at least limit the damage in terms of like him being able to scramble and get outside the pocket, and we're able to contain, not give him a clean pocket, and even when he did have a clean pocket and he had time to throw, we were in a really great zone coverage, I think. As far as rush offense for the Eagles, they have the 10th most rushing attempts, 5th fewest rushing yards, tied for the fewest rushing yards per attempt, and tied for the 3rd most rushing touchdowns, and the 3rd fewest rushing yards per game. So, I think that was how they were able to be so successful in 2024 with Saquon, is like, they would run the ball, take their chances in play action, and then when they get the lead, just hammer it with Saquon, and he would hit the home run. That's just not happening this year. And I don't know what Landon Dickerson's situation is. he missed the first game against us in week 6, so I'm wondering, is he going to be back or is he back? So that could be another huge contributor. They have the 4th worst third down percentage and the 6th best fourth down percentage. So like I said, it's a matter of can we keep them in 3rd and long and then keep them out of 4th and 4 or shorter? Because I feel like they are one of the teams that if they get into a 4th and 5, 4th and 4 situation, they're going for it like 9 out of 10 times. Majority of the times they're going to go for it with 4th and 4 or 4th and 5, no matter where they are in the field. That's how confident they are in converting. They have the 3rd fewest red zone attempts, so they're not getting into the red zone very often, but when they do, they score. They have the highest red zone percentage. Tied for the 2nd fewest plays per drive and the 6th fewest yards per drive, and they also own the worst starting position. They usually start their own 27.5, so would be huge for Gillen to really step it up and have a good game kicking off the ball. Hopefully he can get it in a spot where they're can't get a big return, and you have to force the Eagles offense to work. And yeah, so I still am not like I still don't feel confident with our defense against this Eagles offense, just because I've seen them tear us apart. Devontae and AJ and Dallas and even Saquon. It's like, while I think that we could probably shut down Saquon again, it's like I can see Dallas Goedert going off for a lot of big catches. And I don't think, with Adebo possibly being out, I don't know that you're going to see Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown continue to struggle. There was a little bit of a coming out party against the Vikings, with Jalen taking more shots down the field and connecting with A.J. and Devontae. And so how do the Giants limit that? Like if you're missing Holland and Adebo, oh shit, dude. I think the Eagles offense might be getting on a roll. Eagles defense has allowed the 7th most total yards, 5th most plays, 8th most first downs, and tied for the 2nd most first downs by penalty. And they're also allowing the 4th highest scoring percentage. So this Eagles defense is flawed, is vulnerable, is not as locked down, shut down as they've been in the past. And I think you saw that in week 6 with the Giants being able to take advantage of that and scoring a lot. The Eagles defense has faced the 6th most passing attempts, and they're tied for the 2nd fewest passing touchdowns. They've allowed the 9th most rushing attempts and total rushing yards, and the 6th highest rushing yards per attempt, tied for the 3rd most rushing touchdowns allowed, 2nd most first downs allowed by rush. So it does feel like you are going to see a heavy dose of Cam Scatterbo and Tyrone Tracy in this affair. I think it's good to have Tyrone back, and I think that he allows Scatterbo to get a breather here and there, so he can be fresh in the 4th quarter. So that ideally you want to have Scatterbo running the ball in the 4th quarter. That means good things are happening for us, and you can wear them down and basically have them submit like they did in week 6. I think passing wise, we had a couple deep shots against the Eagles in week 6. You had that little Jordan Humphrey deep shot that completed. I'd like to see them go try that again. Jalen Hyatt just missed a touchdown, got a DPI. So I'd like to see us attempt that again. Almost connected it. We're almost connecting on it. Almost connected with him in the Eagles game. It would have been touchdown. We almost connected with him in Denver, where it would have put us in scoring territory. So I think the offense should be able to have a good deal of success again against this Eagles defense. It's just a matter of what our defense can do against their offense, especially if we're missing 2 of our starters. Yuck. Eagles special teams, they've only had 5 punt returns in 7 games. It's tied for the fewest in the NFL. They're tied for the 4th most kickoff returns, but they have the 2nd lowest yards per kickoff return. So I think special teams is an area where we can excel and win this game. That's like is not the highlight, not the top story if we do end up getting the dub, but it do feel like if we do win, it's going to be a major contributor. It's going to be like, Jamie Gillen doing his part on kickoffs and making sure that they're not getting the ball out past the 30, and it's going to be Gunnar Olszewski giving us great returns on kickoffs and punt returns, which he's pretty much done the entire season. So, a little bit underrated, you know, deep dive analytic type thing where it's like field position, I think, is going to be huge, and where we start versus where they start. Because like you look back at the week 6 game, they did not have great starting position for the majority of that game, whereas we did. They have allowed the 9th fewest all-purpose return yards, they have generated the 9th fewest all-purpose return yards. So like their kickoff returners aren't doing much, their punt returners aren't doing much. They have the fewest field goal attempts and fewest field goals made, and I have a feeling that's because they like I said, they like to go for it on 4th down and short, no matter where it is on the field. So whereas most teams would kick the field goal, it's not like they don't have trust in Jake Elliott. I think it's just they have more confidence in their offense getting the first down. They're tied for the second fewest touchbacks on kickoff, so we should be able to have plenty of opportunities to have some nice returns. They have the 3rd lowest touchback percentage, so I think Gunnar and I guess Deonte Banks as the other returner should get their chances to get us in nice starting position. What sucks is like we don't have a kicker, so even if we get in good field position and we have the opportunities to kick the field goal, we either will not attempt the field goal because we don't have a kicker, and we'll punt the ball. Stupid. They have the 4th most punts and they're second in yards per punt. But they've given up the most punt return yards, 4th highest net. So it's their punters getting good leg on it, good distance, but like their coverage unit, not great. They're tied for the 3rd most touchbacks and the 6th highest touchback percentage. They have the 2nd lowest inside the 20 percentage. So again, I think that goes back to the punter not knowing his strength. It's like, hey, dude, let's get some more height on that ball, not get so much distance. Give your guys a chance to get down there and make the tackle, or at least down it inside the 20, and he's not doing that. And that's good for your and our and my New York Giants. This team is kind of unpredictable. I'd like to think that we've turned the corner in terms of divisional games, and we can start piling some wins in the division because, shit, man, if you can sweep the Eagles and you have a Commanders team where Daniels is kind of hurt and they're not really quite operating at the same level as they were last season. You have the Cowboys, who offensively are just like one of the best offenses in NFL history, but like the defense, have they fixed things defensively? I don't know. I mean, they're 3-1, and you feel better about your chances at home overall. So I do think we could steal a win against the Commanders in Dallas at home to be able to sweep the Eagles. I mean, you could possibly have a 4-2 fucking divisional record. That should be good enough to go to the playoffs. But again, I don't believe in this coaching staff, because I look at a team, I mentioned before, but I'll mention again. I look at a team like the 49ers, who have been plagued with injuries and have been able to beat teams with backups. And it goes back to coaching. They have the coaches. We do not. And that's why it's like, do you, like Dan Schneider said, do you believe that we're going to win this game up 19? No. And it's not even a question. Like, I know there were some people on X that are celebrating early prematurely, but it's like it's like, come on, guys. We've been down this road before. So, do I foresee another beatdown of the Eagles? No, but I see a much closer contest this go around. I do think that we could pull out the win. I mean, Jackson Dart is giving us, with Jackson Dart taking snaps, you feel really good about your chances. You do. You feel really good. It just comes back to the defense. Are we going to have a showing like we did against New Orleans and Dallas and Denver? Or are we going to have a showing like we did the first time go round against Philly and against the Chargers? Like, which team is going to show up? I don't know, because we kind of caught the Eagles and got fortunate against them in week 6 because, not having Jalen Carter, not having Landon Nickerson, not having Quinyon Mitchell. Like, is it going to be that same case this go around? I don't know. It's only Monday, so I don't know that they are going to have much updates. Looking at the injury report heading into that Vikings game, did Jalen Carter play? I guess he did play. I guess Landon Dickerson and Jalen Carter are both back, and maybe Quinyon Mitchell is too. Carter and Dickerson were active, and Quinyon Mitchell was not listed, so that makes me think that he did play. Oh boy. Yeah, tough to see us being able to come out of a win when you don't have a Debo and Holland on defense, and with the guys nicked up, Burns kind of gimpy, Abdul not 100%. So that gives me pause. You have to feel good about the offense. You feel like the offense is going to come to play as long as they don't turn the ball over, which the Eagles defense doesn't force a ton of turnovers, so I feel good in that respect. But if the Eagles do get a lead where it's more than a field goal, you do feel like Dart will start to press and force things. So if we can keep it, within a field goal or less, once it gets to 7 or more points, then I feel like Dart will start to force things. But we'll see. That's why they play the game. Oh boy. It's nighttime. Hot damn. Thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And go Giants. We'll talk to you next time. Adios. Moo. Chaw.